You're listening to the Getting Salty Experience podcast.
Away we go. Welcome back. Welcome back to the kitchen table. Garrett Lindgren, QCB's Tank and Miss Jake Rixner.
Oh.
Who else is in there? Johnny Albanese. Welcome back to Getting Salty Experience podcast. The only one that brings the Firehouse Kitchen Table to you.
I see.
Not only do we bring
Sammy
the kitchen
Peters
table, Sammy Peters is in there. We bring all the knowledge and the drilling to you guys too. This is long overdue. We got to get back to some serious stuff. Not only we bring fire stories, we bring humor, we bring you name it. Now we're going to bring you some tips and a little roundtable discussion that we called Random Thoughts that we're going to banter about. That's what I'm saying, Ruffy. How you doing over there?
Good. Yourself?
Yeah? Oh, I can't complain.
You look good.
Coming up on Thanksgiving week, except for the hole in my shirt. My wife's
What happened over there? Did that burn off you? You burned it up?
No, but she's definitely going to see that, and AJ's going to be like, I can't believe you wore that shirt on the show.
Heavy fire duty.
That was heavy fire duty.
These are actually my favorite shows, believe it or not. I mean, I enjoy the interviews, but when we were going over the topics, and then I started writing some of my little tips and stuff down, I'm like,
your random thoughts?
Yeah,
if you will.
I couldn't remember what the name of the camera was that we used to use. I used it for 10 years. I couldn't remember the thing. You know, it's like incredible. You're out of the thing for a couple of years. You don't even remember shit.
Hank asked me, you were taking any notes? I go, here's my notes. The only thing to remind everybody, happy Thanksgiving and a little doodling. So those are my notes.
Yeah, it is a happy Thanksgiving. What are you guys doing?
My mother-in-law. I'm going by my mother-in-law.
I'm going to Chief Steve's house, baby.
Oh, nice.
We're going to have like 35 people there.
I don't know how
His son's in. His son is in from Wisconsin. Yep.
Nice.
What are you doing, Pete? What's a Jewish Thanksgiving like?
Well, it's
not spin the dreidel. What do you do?
Nothing actually.
Kosher glot food. What are we doing? What do we have?
No. We're going over to my sister-in-law's house, but the twist this year is that my mom and her husband are coming over, and he's this Bosnian dude who like fought in the Civil War, Yugoslavian Civil War and stuff. So I'm really kind of nervous, you know.
Pete does it good. He's not afraid to tell stories about how he killed people. Right?
He's killed. He doesn't talk about it, but if you get him going, like if I, like when people start talking about, oh, I had it so hard at work the other day, he's like, you have hard at work. I kill my neighbor. What? I'm not even kidding. People are like, wait, you killed your neighbor? What?
I don't be giving the fuck shit.
Yes. So tell me how the Thanksgiving's going to go with him, Pete.
I don't know, man. This is a total wild card because.
So do him at the table, Peter.
Okay, hold on. Let me think. Hey, Sam, do me a favor. Pass the turkey. Yeah, turkey. Yeah, very good holiday. Yeah. Okay. Let me tell you about turkey. I have a Serbian neighbor in 3. He tried to kill me with AK-47. I cut him in half with machine gun. You know what I mean? That's a fucking holiday. And you're like, what? What the fuck are you talking about? He's like,
doesn't do that. Come on.
That's his honest to God. I shortened the story. But basically, his neighbor tried to murder him, and then he cut the neighbor in half with an M60, which is a nice big old machine gun. And then 2-3 days later, the
wife come looking for him,
the mom of the son, she goes, oh, have you seen my boy? And he goes, nah. Never seen him. I don't know.
We ain't seen shit.
Ain't seen shit around here. And that's just one of the many things that let me tell you,
drink.
Boys,
that could be a problem if he drinks. Does he drink a lot?
Yeah, he likes to have a couple.
That could be problems.
He likes the Heinekens. He likes a good cognac. He doesn't mind.
Why wouldn't?
Yep. But I mean, listen, I'm crossing my fingers. We got some pretty decent people over there, and but no, I'll tell you. When you hear stories of Civil War, and then I went over there in 95 when it ended, and you see the aftermath and everything, when people talk about that shit, like, America's heading for it. Listen, bro, shut the fuck up. You don't want it. You don't fucking want it. I mean, that's a legit true story that I just told. It was funny, but it's not fucking funny.
So this is really the first time all these people are getting together for the first time?
No, it's the first time my mom and her husband are coming over to my sister-in-law's place.
Your sister-in-law on your wife's side?
Yeah. Yeah,
so Steve will be there.
Steve will be there. Our resident Jew who tells us all the important Jewish holiday stuff, right? My wife and kids, and then my brother-in-law and sister-in-law and her sister.
about the conversation between Steve and Sam?
Oof. They've had a few. They've kept it civil. They've kept it civil, but Steve understands. Sam is a wild card, and he just leaves it alone. You know what I mean? You don't want to get too wild.
Smart man.
Oh, bullshit.
I don't be giving no shit.
Everything bullshit.
Everything bullshit.
I mean, legit, man. It was intense.
Nice.
I would give those. He gets one Heineken. That's it.
I can't stop him, man. You try and put the fucking brakes on him.
He fucking shot his neighbor in a tree. You don't give him the beer, bro. You don't know what he's gonna do.
That was one of the.
You'll find a drumstick up your ass or something.
I'll tell you next time we get together, we'll talk about him. I'll tell you about the time he got carjacked in Brooklyn in the 80s.
Let's get him on the show, bro. We got to get him on the show.
I don't know.
Heineken's.
Dude, he's a badass. He survived.
You're not policeman. You fireman.
He survived.
You're not policeman, you fireman.
He survived cancer because he worked in HVAC and all that, all that asbestos shit and all that stuff. So he survived.
Civil Wars, cancer. This guy kicks the shit out of everything, bro.
Dude, he's like Chuck Norris, but he looks like Borat.
Yeah,
I'm not even kidding.
Try not to get behind it, Tony. Good luck.
I love the guy, but my God, I mean, you know what? We'll keep going. When we do this commercial, I'm going to pull up a picture, not of him, but of a guy that he looks like. And then you'll see what I'm talking about.
All right, let's do it.
All right, let's get to the commercials, Pete.
All right, because we got some really senior dudes who are some of our amongst our favorite guests. So we'll bring them on in a minute. But as you guys all know, we like to bring you the finest sponsors in the game. And tonight we are sponsored by New Jersey Fire Equipment Company. Established in 1930 and under the current ownership since 1987, the New Jersey Fire Equipment Company handles a complete line of fire department equipment and supplies. Headquartered in Greenbrook, the company operates full 3M Scott service facilities in Ridgefield Park and Toms River, staffed by 10 fully authorized Scott certified technicians with a fleet of 6 fully equipped service vans. All New Jersey fire technicians and sales representatives are active or retired firefighters, officers or chief officers, career and volunteer. They understand the business and the importance of their work. New Jersey Fire has represented Scott since Earl Scott entered the SCBA business at the end of World War II. Among other leading manufacturers represented by New Jersey Fire are Globe and Firedex Turnout Gear, Mercedes Hose, Task Force Tips and Akron Brass, Hygenol, Fire Hooks, Arctic Compressors, MSA Carnes Helmets, ChemGuard Foam, Alkalite and Duo Safety Ladders, BA Face Shield Protectors, Truckman's Choice Saws, Grove's Gear Racks and Washer Dryers, Supervac Fans, RPI, Streamlight, and many others. A New Jersey incorporated and based company, sales and service are limited to the state of New Jersey. Find us now at www.njfe.com. That's www.njfe.com.
Beautiful.
You guys ready for this?
Yeah.
So this is a very famous old Croatian singer, but I would say that he looks a lot like when you want to put face to a voice, you look at this picture right here. Gorky Bulchik.
What's that guy's name?
This guy is Tomislav Ivčić.
Nice. All right. There we go. We got a little Croatian history today.
Oh, this guy, great song. One of my all-time favorite songs.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
When you go with Thanksgiving, why do you tell Sam that your father-in-law is Serbian? See what happens.
Yeah, he'll tell you something. All right.
All right, what else you got to say? Don't forget about the super chat at CFD for your information. It is just for men, medium brown Coleman. There you go.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Did you?
Very
Is
nice.
it Coleman?
Medium brown. Yeah,
I was thinking about it because I'm getting really, getting frosty.
You gotta keep
over
the
here.
gray. You gotta keep it.
Yeah, the ladies like the gray.
Yes.
All right. Well, guys, hook us up in the super chat. Get on over to gettingsaltyapparel.com. Let's get these boys in the chat. What do you say?
Do it.
All right.
Come on, do it.
Well, bring them in, Coobs.
Oh, I got to bring in my captain. It's Dennis Murphy with one N. There he is. And directly from Del Boca Vista, Florida, He just finished the early bird special. Bring him on in. It's close to his bedtime, so we got to do this quick.
Frank Molle.
Mickey, senior dude, Frank Molle.
Yeah.
There he is.
Good evening, Leatherhead Nation. I hope you're all well.
Hank the Frank Molle.
Hank
Hank the Frank Molle.
That one never gets old, right?
Nope.
Oh, well.
Before we get started, we have to get the patriotic, Pete. We're not going to skip that, are we?
Oh, never.
Hell no.
How would we ever do that, ladies and gentlemen? The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Yes, and Garrett Lindgren, you are correct. Two of FDNY's very best this evening, and we got him on this show. Not Pin the
Thank you,
Q,
Garrett.
not the National Fire Radio, right here, bro.
Nope,
what
we got the best of the
All right,
best.
Pete, so how are we going to do this? We're going to do a little...
Yeah, we have a bunch of topics. We have 10 topics
Topics.
for tonight, plus something last minute that our friend Joe Sperber sent in from just today in Westbury. There was a fire, so we got something to talk about there. I'll set it up and everything. I got the email, but I figure roughly 10 minutes or so per topic. We'll see how far we get, and we'll freeball it a little bit. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do like a little I'll do this around 9 or 10 minutes. Just a little, reminder,
All right,
You get one last statement.
And we'll either say good or we'll tell you to pound salt, one or the other.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
You dick.
All right, Pete, why don't you pull up the first topic, and we'll let my captain, go first.
The first topic. Well, you know what the first topic is. Hold on, I'll pull it up. The
Jeez,
first
talk about ill-prepared. What the hell is this?
First topic is the pitfalls and pluses of thermal imaging cameras.
Maybe you could type that up and put that on the screen and just
What do you
throwing
say,
it out
Cap?
there.
What do you
I
got?
don't know.
Yeah, all right.
Well, I got to say, during my time in the fire department, my generation, when I started till I retired, it's certainly one of the biggest technological improvements that we received. And I'm sure Tank is going to tell you the same thing. I was in Rescue 2 when we got one of the first thermal images. Rescue 1 got the other one. And we broke it within 24 hours. So yeah. we broke it at a drill. We broke
Fireman
it
breaking something.
we
Never
broke
heard
it.
of it.
We broke it drilling in our own firehouse that we know like the back of our hand.
Yeah.
We broke it, But
Did you ask, hey, does this thing come with a warranty? Well,
yeah, went right back. I had to go back to get repaired. Captain Downey was furious, but it does show what some of the limitations were. Technology has certainly improved a long way since the late 80s, early 90s. But the first thermal imager that the job had was, I think, the original August. It looked like a big coffee can like this, and it had a pistol grip on the bottom. It had insulating covers around it. It was kind of awkward, but it worked. It did basically what the new ones do, but not as well. And some of the things that it didn't see, in this particular case, one of our guys was coming down the basement. We had a small basement in Rescue 2's quarters and stepped in the sump, the drainage sump, which was a hole in the floor basically, and fell, and he injured himself and he broke the camera. So that was one of the things that we picked up right away. You can't use it as a crutch. It's not an X-ray machine. There's a lot of stuff with it. But that being said, aside from the weight and the bulk of the carrying the camera, there's not much of a downside to it. It really enhances your operations. It's a tremendous technological achievement. I'll tell a quick story about a fire that both Hank, myself, and Kevin were at. It was a health club in Queens Boulevard, and we were in quarters. We didn't get sent right away. There was issues with that. And all of a sudden, you could hear something. There hadn't been any transmissions at this thing, and all of a sudden, we get sent. We get there, and the chief's going, "Something's going on down there. I'm not sure what it is." It's the basement of a health club, a commercial building. We go down there. Smoke condition wasn't too bad, but as we're going down there, we start hearing maydays. Guys are going down. Guys are out, unconscious, have to be assisted out. A couple of guys are in very bad shape, have to be carried out. One guy had to be airlifted to the hospital. So now, one of the companies involved was the rescue company. Two of our guys did a great job removing the last guy that was in there, the late Joe Hunter and Mike Travis from Rescue 4, and Joe Hunter from 288 did a tremendous job, very difficult job getting the last firefighter out. Hank did a great job getting these guys packaged and upstairs. So I go back and I got the camera. So I go into this health club, which is like a corridor going into the locker room. And there's about 3-4 inches of water on the floor. They got a 2.5 in there somewhere. I could feel it snaking around. And I just, pure luck, I've told this story before. I put my hand down. There's the nozzle. So I got the nozzle. I got the camera. Okay, so everybody's masks on. There's a lot of CO. The CO meters are going off everywhere. That's what dropped everybody. So one of our guys comes in. Anthony Tito comes in. I give him the nozzle. I go, we got to find a fire. And I'm looking. Now, this is where I'm getting at with the camera. So now I'm scanning with the camera, okay? And I see the fire to my right. The fire's over here on the right. So Anthony hits it, has no effect on the fire. So I go, and I just stop for a second. I start scanning, but I hear the fire the other way. And I go, and I could feel, it was hot, but I could feel more heat from the other side. So I moved up, and it turns out there was a corner, like a wall, a corner wall here, right?
A reflection or something?
It was reflecting what's in gyms, right? Mirrors all over the place, you know? So it was reflecting off the mirror. We moved up. There's the fire to the left. And what was burning was, it was a sauna that they had decommissioned and turned into a storage room. Now, you can't have sprinklers in a sauna, but the sprinkler right outside the door of the sauna was going off. And every time the fire vented out, it knocked it back down. Fire vent out, knock it back. And that's what created the tremendous CO condition in that enclosed space. And, you know, but we were lucky that, you know, didn't totally depend on the thermal imaging camera, but the thermal imaging camera was right. And it's training that gets you to realize that, because you don't do it that much. You know, you're not doing real actual structural fires where the thermal imaging camera is really the key every day. You're doing it more today than we were back then, but still, it just goes to show you how you have to also use your senses in addition to the information you're getting from the thermal imaging camera, and how you can be fooled, you know, and you also have to fall back on your senses. And I have a few more things, but I'll let Hank go for a while.
Go ahead, Hanky.
Well, I like you, you know, I'm of the first generation thermal imaging camera, not like, you know, Louis and Kevin had, and even the ones they have now, where, you know, they're microscopic compared. Like I said, I always felt like I was carrying around a small garbage pail with a handle. It was like a small boat anchor around your neck. Remember, you had you know, it had the lanyard and then the battery pack that weighed like 5 pounds because of the battery in it.
That was a bullet, right?
This is a thermal right here.
No, yeah, well, I'm talking about.
You know what I mean?
I think in one we had, it wasn't a bullet. I think we had a bullet.
Mm-hmm.
We had the bullet one, and it had like that soft packaging around it. So like if you banged it, hopefully it wouldn't, you know, whatever. You know, I was a fan of it to a point. I think it was great to help. A lot of times you go into, you know, an area, a commercial or a house, and you might have a smoke condition. You smell smoke. It's not always going to be fire visible. And I found it helpful at times, like trying to find if you had fire running a pipe chase, you know, if you put up against the wall, you could almost, you know, that you could see the chase. It would just light up. I've used it in Queen Anne's or homes that had center fireplaces, you know, that weren't up on the outside of the house. And a lot of times with, you know, the older fireplaces, you get the brick nogging would dry up, and the heat would transfer out into the lath. And I remember having a job once where I think it was around Thanksgiving time. People said, we've been smelling smoke all day and it's starting to get a little smoky. And what it was went in with the camera and went behind the fireplace to the room on the other side, and the wall was bright, you know, bright white, which, you know, is how it shows up. All right, we got it right here. Get the line in here, you know. And then they started pulling and hit the fire. But I don't like to become too dependent on that. for a couple of reasons. Like Dennis said, when if you're walking in and using it, like you can't use like binoculars because you'll fall into a hole, you'll fall down steps, whatever. Plus, it's a piece of machinery, and you know what? It can break down, and it can break down at the most inopportune time. So if you're not used to using your senses to try to locate the fire and getting around, to me, it's a tool. Like if somebody just came into the fire service now and they get so used to having that, well, if it goes dead and you're 50 feet in, now you're shit out of luck. So you have to, you still have to hone your senses, to find fire, to locate fire, to find your way around, and then you can still depend on it. It is a great tool to have, but it's still, to me, it's still not a replacement for experience. The only other time, and I think I had mentioned this on one of the podcasts, I know when I was in one, we had a fire in a commercial building in like the Wharf District. It was textiles. They had rolls of carpeting and stuff in the basement, and there was fire in the basement, but it was kind of isolated. But there was a pretty good smoke condition, and they had been getting water on the fire. Then all of a sudden there was a mayday, all right, and we were able to use the camera to locate the firefighter. It was from a truck company. He had gotten separated, and these carpets had created these little aisles, and they were about 5 foot high. And all we saw was like from his neck up. But we located him with the camera, and we're able to get on a handy. So you almost yell to him and say, "We got you on the camera. Don't move." And then we were able to find a way to get him and just walk him out. So it does have its purpose, its purposes and uses. But like I said, I still think your own senses have to be honed. Your experience.
Yeah, I think it's another tool. It's just great.
I wrote down 3 things. Same thing, Cap. I wrote down, first thing I wrote on, don't depend on the camera only. Right. So if I was searching, if I was in the truck, I would turn the camera on, but I wouldn't use I would still, like the captain said, he would listen for it. He would feel for it, right, with your face or whatever. And then I would pick the camera up and take a look. When I took the class with Bobby at DENIS, I don't know when I got promoted to lieutenant or if it was a class we took after, he did something that was pretty interesting. He laid down, he had the burn barrels going, right? You'd be sitting in there on air. And he would lay down to where his body temperature was the same as the temperature in the room. And he wouldn't show up on the. Right. I don't remember how he did it. I remember when you walk in, like Hank said, you pick the camera up, you look at the wall, it's white, right? It's easy to spot. If you get into a room fast and let's say the fire hasn't gotten going, you're going to see the person that's going to show up like that with a white, response, right? But when everything's the same temperature in the room, if the fire has been going on and the person's been knocked out for a while, they're going to. And when he laid down, you couldn't tell he was there. Right. If you just use the camera only. Right. So that was one thing that stuck out to me. And I would say the last thing that really something I used it almost always was at like a warehouse where we had high ceilings and, the smoke level would be pretty far down and, or, right at our level, but you wouldn't know how much you had above you. And you can absolutely take a look with the camera and you could see where things were flowing. And that really, pinpoints a lot of stuff because that's definitely something you can't see.
Yeah. All right. Ruffy took my point.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So I'm going to just start by saying that when we got the new cameras, we got the MSAs, right? My wife actually made that sale to the FDNY. First large sale of cameras to the FDNY. So what Louis was saying, what some guys don't realize, it shows heat differential, right? So that's why when Bobby Stanis was laying down, he used the same heat, same temperature as where he was laying. So it's not necessarily heat, it's the heat differential. And one other tip I got is it can be useful when you pull up, and we go to a lot of them in the wintertime, when the manholes are burning and you're not supposed to park on, over the manhole. Using the camera outside, the ones that are hot will look bright white and there'll be circles of white. So you can tell which ones, you got to be careful of. Just by panning the street over all the manholes, you can tell which ones are hot and which ones not necessarily pushing smoke, but they may be hot, and that might be something that you want to steer clear of.
All right.
Yeah, that's. I just got one or two more things I just want to do.
Sorry, boys. That's not the one I wanted to hit. Ah, there it is.
I got a couple more points. I just
Go
wanted-
with it, Cap.
you guys made a good point, and especially Bobby Athanas with his company Safe IR. They give very good training, and it's camera specific training to the make and model of the camera that you were using. Originally, there used to be a lot of differences between the cameras. Now there's an NFPA standard on it that's kind of standardized a lot of stuff. Like the cameras go from regular sensitivity to low sensitivity when they hit a high heat environment, right? They throttle, right? And they tell you when they shutter, it may shut down and
Switch
reboot.
over. Yeah.
That used to be different from every camera was a little different. I think they've standardized that now with the NFPA standard. But like you said, your training really needs to reflect the characteristics of the specific camera that you use in your department. And hopefully it's standardized like the FDNY standardized many years ago. Each individual department. It's a lot tougher to do for small departments because these are big ticket items as far as equipment goes, And the other thing, like a couple of you guys mentioned, was don't become overly dependent. In a commercial building, you still drop the search rope, The other thing with training is, and you touched on that also, a room flash is over and somebody's like, it's like looking for a fire victim when there's good visibility. The whole room becomes monochromatic, which means like if I can see, like if there's no smoke in there, everything's charred, everything's black, right? Including the victim if they're in there. A lot of people, we don't talk about this much, but the victim becomes the same color as everything else in there, and we have to go find them. I mean, sometimes you'll see the outline, but sometimes, when they coined the term "burnt beyond recognition," that's still our responsibility to find that person, just as much as if they're fully intact and they're under a layer of smoke, and it's easy to find them. We still have to find that person after the room's flashed over. Before the smoke is cleared and the room is flashed over, we've knocked it down with a hose line. That person is very hard, as you just talked about, because they're the same temperature. Like you said, it shows temperature differential. So, and if you train, like we all train in the firehouse with the camera, the room is warm and the firefighter is cooler. So the firefighter is a dark shape in the warmer, whiter room, right? And then when you go to an actual fire, it's just the opposite. It reverses, So that's why when you train, you kind of need to train as part of your training is a little live burn training. So you get used to looking at that, And just one of the other things, like Hank said, don't become over dependent. Scan with it, when using it. Don't use it all the time. But scan then go. There's 100 different ways, even in the FDNY, there's companies that operate one way, doing a search with the thermal imaging camera. They have 3 guys. Other companies have 4 guys. Some places have 2 guys. That wasn't standardized while I was working. And around the country, it's definitely not standardized, anything more than from department to department. And finally, when you want to have your means of egress, your secondary way out, before you really start, honing in, it tends to give you tunnel vision when you're looking through this thing. You really focus on it, and you can miss some of those things like holes and stuff like that, or things that are going to hurt you, But my big thing is, like I said earlier, it's not an X-ray machine. It gives you a false sense of security sometimes. So, and it's battery powered, like you guys mentioned. The thing is, it's a mechanical device. You don't want to become overly dependent on any mechanical device in the fire ground, in the fire area. And that's pretty much it. I'm sure
Murphy will show up, not you, Cap.
Yeah.
The other Murphy.
the other guy. The bad Murphy.
If you're part of that team going in, basically it's one member, could be the officer, or one member has the camera. So, don't get into the habit where, well, we're going in with the guy with the camera, so we'll wait and see. No, you're all part of the team. That one guy's got the camera. That increases his ability to do certain things. That doesn't mean you still don't go in there and make your searches, using the sensors that I talked about earlier. If you got to go in on a left-hand search, a right-hand search, feel the bed on top of the bed,
Everybody's got these things now. It's not like years ago when just special units have them. Every engine has them. Every truck has them. I saw a picture at our last get together. A friend of ours, a guy we all worked with, showed me. And he's retired now too. But this is from when he was working. And I just leave it at this. I'm not going to mention any companies. This could happen anywhere. Some of the newer cameras have a feature where it can take video and it can take still pictures. Okay, the newest cameras have that. One of the most decorated guys we know was the officer at this, coming in late as a special unit. From the threshold to the entrance to a fire apartment, there's a line going in. Okay, there's one firefighter, two firefighters standing up. Okay, you can see their feet. You can see them from like the knees down. And right, you can see the door to the fire apartment. And right in the fold of the hose between the door and the firefighters who are standing up in a smoke condition. Again, you can't see this because it's smoked out, right? There's a victim right there. And he had the presence of mind. He's a very experienced guy. He took a picture of it. One of the most effective uses of a training tool that I've seen, because so how many guys, if the engine is in there and the truck is past them, how many guys crawled past
Stepped over him.
Yeah. And they
standing up.
I'm not saying they were standing up when they entered the apartment, but everybody everybody missed them.
Right.
Everybody missed the kid, So while it's sad to see, it's also something that hopefully we learn from,
Yeah.
So again,
right.
it's just a tool.
All right, Kubies, next.
Oh,
Petey, what do you got, Petey?
It's me. We have number 2, 3 overlooked actions in an auto extrication.
Ooh, I got a couple good ones I wrote on.
Go for it.
All right. So then you lead off.
All right, I'm going to go real. I spoke a lot on the last one. I'm going to go real quick, real simple. I was a vehicle extrication instructor for a long, long time.
Nice.
So I'm just gonna tell you three or four things to do at every auto incident that you go to, and every vehicle extrication. And they are so simple. They're so basic. They are extrication 101. Number 1, okay. Turn the ignition off and remove the keys.
Nice.
Okay. Turn the ignition off. Physically reach past the driver who's probably sitting right there. I'm going to take these. And then have a policy. Every place is different what you do with it. Some people give it to the cop. Some people lay it right on the dashboard in case we have to use any of the power features like roll the seat back or something before we cut the battery. But remove the keys. So turn off the ignition. You've just turned off the engine. You've just turned off the battery. Remove the keys. Okay. Second, chock the wheels. Okay, and before you chock the wheels, while you're still in the passenger compartment, put the transmission in park.
I knew you were going to say that.
Put it in park while you're there. You got your head in. You're looking at the guy. You can tell he was drinking. Whatever. Put the transmission in park and then chock the wheels. Chock the wheels on the car or the vehicle that you're doing the extrication on. And while you're at it, not while you're at it, but make sure the chauffeur chocks the wheels on the engine that's about to go into pump. The only reason I say that is just do a cursory look on the internet, and you will see plenty of fun videos of fire trucks rolling down a hill, of cars with people in them, cars on fire, rolling down hills, rolling into ditches, all this stuff. So very, very basic. I'm not going to talk about vertical pushes or lifting dash or dash rolls or any of this other crap. You can go to vehicle extrication school. You take vehicle extrication till you're blue in the face with everything that's going on now. And there's never been more challenging stuff out there between electric vehicles and hybrids and everything else that's rolling around. But those will keep you from getting hurt. That's it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Hank. You want to go?
Ditto on all of that stuff, because I, like you, was teaching vehicle extrication at the academy, and we could spend hours, but basic stuff. To me, also making a blockade for your safety. It can never be big enough. Using the rig, using 2 rigs, especially on some of the roadways where people have to operate. I don't care if it's in the city or out in the in the farm country where still somebody's doing 65 miles an hour out in the cornfield. Lights, plenty of lights at night. Use the rigs because they're harder to move. If a car, if you put cones out, cones go flying, and then the next thing it's hitting is you doing the extrication. So use those $500,000 pieces of apparatus to block the roadway. Another thing, especially now, you're hearing more and more about electric vehicles, and there are more and more on the road. To me, you got to establish a water source, because you're always going to have flammable liquids and fluids that are going to be, escaping from, from whether it's from the gas tank or from, depending on what type of, was it a front end, was it a T-bone? And if it hits an ignition source, a hot catalytic converter, if it lights up, you want to make sure you have, a lot of times they figure, the 400 or 500 gallons I have in the booster tank is going to be enough. But, if you still have people in the car, you got to extricate, it might not be enough. So you got to really think about where your water source is coming from. And another thing is ejected victims. Again, depending on the type of crash you have, if you get there and there's a door's flown open, maybe it's on the side of the interstate, somebody could have went rolling down into the gully or got ejected out, into the woods. So you have to have somebody just do a cursory look around. If you can establish information, if the person can talk in the car, you find out. But if not, just that sometimes could be overlooked. So that's it.
That's actually not a bad place to use your thermal imaging camera if you have a car with somebody ejected into an area that's visible that you can use it. I mean, I wouldn't say you still have to go do a search, but a quick scan with that might pick them right up.
I was saying the same thing.
Yeah,
it's so funny, Cap, because me and Kev, we learned from you two guys when we first came to the squad. And when I first started, right, they had the older cars and everything was, you attack the native pin, right? It's so funny that you said vertical push, because I had chocking first, put the car in park. And then I had number 2, vertical push, which was what you taught us, because the cars was getting so thin and light that going for the native pin, wouldn't work. It would rip the car apart.
Right.
And that brings me to my absolute, this is the thing that I used to stress the most, and the things that I saw the most over the years was people don't use feathering, right? They have the big tool in their hand and guys jam it in the fucking crack. And what do? They hit full power and there it is. The whole thing fucking rips apart. And then you just create so much aggravation for everybody and yourself. And I've seen guys that I'm talking about feather, like, just with an 80-pound tool, just pulling it apart little by little, reset, pull it apart, reset, doing it.
You get your purchase.
Yep, you keep getting a repurchase and the door pops wide open and it's never a problem. So I would say feathering with everything seems to be was the key, over the years.
All right, so you guys took most of my points, but I'll hit vehicle stabilization again because we just saw that guy from Rescue 1 with the vehicle turned over on him. So make sure the vehicle is stabilized. I have also get a guy in the car to get your hands on the patient. He's our patient then. We had that, right, Cap? You were the can man. Unfortunately, if you're the can man, you're the first guy in there. You got the patient. You're not working the tool.
Stay there the whole goddamn time.
You stay there the whole time. He's our patient. We're going to take control over. As the chauffeur, when I would pull in, guys would love to work the tool. We had plenty of guys working the tool. There was stuff for me to do. I would always stretch the line off the bumper and charge it and have it ready. And also what Hank said, use the rig as opposed to cones. And most importantly, flares. I've seen guys with gasoline leaking on the floor. I'm not going to say which agency it was, NYPD, but they put flares down the street right up to the car where there's gasoline leaking out. So if you're the chauffeur, you may not be a fun time. You may not get your hands on the tool, but you could keep the guy safe by stretching that line and making sure everything else is copacetic.
Yeah, the chauffeur plays a critical role, whether it's a rescue or a squad company or any company, really, even a ladder company that's using a hearse tool. The chauffeur plays a critical role. He's like the free safety. I mean, he's the guy that's the backing up of everybody, and he's got a critical role to play to keeping everybody safe and keeping the operation moving along. It's you can get stymied. He's the guy that can fill in at any position. So.
Right. I also had another one.
Go ahead.
Sometimes we would use the grip hoist, and believe it or not, like the Cap said, chock the rigs on the rig, chock the wheels on the rig, because I've had it before. We pull it and the rig starts
moving. Yeah.
You think that that's got enough weight, but sometimes it doesn't. So chock the wheels on the rig. Use the grip hoist so you don't start sliding.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to go to your point that when we were always on the highway, right? 69th Street, at Queens Boulevard. And I have to say, over the years, you know, it was really a pleasure because that was my biggest pet peeve. And, you know, again, we just saw the guy from New Haven we had on. He got killed on the highway. I did just yesterday, the day before, a couple of days, whatever. A guy from Cleveland just got killed on the highway. So I just remember 136 and 287 and us and the other companies, 292 coming the other way, rescue. We always, you know, they would block 2 lanes consistently. Yeah. You know, you even if the traffic was backed up for 5 miles, I didn't give a shit. You know what I mean? As long as we had a couple of trucks, 140 or whoever, everybody would just, there would be a couple of lines of rigs like caddied off so that you could operate. And, you know, at least you weren't, I was always looking at that, right? You're always worried about a car coming around or something like that, trying to get through traffic faster. But guys always did a good job with that. And that was always a pet peeve, I guess, because we were there all the time, you know.
Well, we've lost so many guys, and we've lost enough guys, and we've had so many people hurt and had so many close calls on those highways. And the times that used to bother me were like 3 or 4 in the morning before traffic had taken off, like to the LIE. I remember we were in the Bronx once on an overpass. We were up in the Bronx, coming back from the Bronx, from a job in the Bronx, and we came across a car accident on the overpass going down to the Whitestone Expressway to go to the Whitestone Bridge. And, you know, it was like 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning, and cars were flying. And then we're trying to get the dispatcher. We're trying to get the location to the dispatcher that he understands to get the units in. I mean, we're right on the LIE. We know how difficult it can be, you know, inner roadway, outer roadway, you know, which direction, all that stuff. But yeah, that's a scary feeling because you really feel like you're exposed in those positions.
Yeah.
You know?
No doubt.
Right. So. And Kev, just something to what you said before about, you mentioned the rescue one when the you know, the car flipped, you know, it was on its side about stabilizing. And if I remember correctly, looking at the pictures, they had struts out on that. But
yes, correct.
I was never a big fan of the struts, or just, to me, it was like if you had a car in that position where you had to use the struts, you almost had to have a secondary, like an opposing, whether it was
pulling it the other way
this way, like whether you had the grip hoist coming over it, you know, to try to counter it, because I don't know, this is my own personal opinion. If you're just using the struts, unless you have something pounded into the asphalt, you know, like a chop to keep it from kicking, and a way to make sure that it's on that car, it's very easy for them to slip out. So
I think somebody said too that somebody hit the gas pedal at that job. That's what's setting the car.
Oh, the car wasn't. I think the guy was reaching in or something to shut the car off. Something to that effect. Guys were just setting stuff up.
Right.
And the guy, I think they told the guy to put it in park, and he hit the gas instead, or something to that effect, and then it just popped up and rolled over on him.
You mean Murphy's Law?
Yeah.
I mean,
Captain's cousin.
Listen, think about what your frame of mind is after a serious vehicle accident. I was just in a vehicle accident last month, doing like 50 miles an hour. Right when I hit, doing 50 miles an hour.
Wow.
And you know, airbag goes off. You're like, what the hell just happened? You know, and now you come to a stop. And I did all the things, you know, that I said I turned it off, put it in park, that I could do, but I was like stunned. You know, you're like, what the hell just happened? You know, and it's understandable. You know, you know, it's very dangerous out there. People are completely distracted all over, not just with us, but with everything. You know, you look at what happened to John Walters and Mike Shunk just getting on and off the rig just to get dinner that night, you know, or whatever they were doing, right? And it's just people aren't watching. You know, it's just you see it every day. You see more cars into buildings these days than I've ever seen in my whole career. It's all the time, you know,
because they're on their phone looking or reading or something.
Oh, phone drink. Now the phone just adds another thing, right? It was either drinking or whatever, but
I think the phone is more of a problem than drinking and driving nowadays.
I agree 100%.
All right, boys.
You didn't ring the bell, Pete.
I rang it about 4 minutes ago.
So basically, we said pound salt. Okay.
Yeah, you said pound salt. So I'll ring it again a little louder. This time it'll sound like this.
Yeah, keep your bell.
All right,
Give
I'm
you a
giving the
bell.
bell.
Next.
Here we go. 3, what to listen for and look for when responding as the fast truck.
Okay.
You want
Go ahead.
you want me to start? You want to
Yeah,
start?
go ahead. That's fine.
All right. Well, so the fast truck. So you're going in there with a specific purpose. So, and that's in case shit's hitting the fan and they got to put you to work to, possibly, find the, down firefighters or, they're in trouble. So the first thing is you should be really monitoring you size up. Again, it starts when you get in the rig. Listen to that department radio for any pertinent information they're giving. As you get closer to the scene, if there are units in, and there should be units in if you're the fast truck, you should start picking up the handy talkie and really trying to listen to that handy talkie because you're going to be getting information that's not coming over the department radio. That's the on-scene guys there. Maybe the first 2 truck officers got some important information or the OV. So you want to be monitoring that radio. How many times have you heard where guys have missed Maydays? A lot. So that's something that if you are that fast truck, keep your guard up. Don't get caught in this mindset like shit, I'm pissed off. We got to stand out here outside, and everybody else is going to work, and we got all this equipment waiting here.
No
That's
doubt.
right. You're there just in case, because tomorrow it may be your turn inside and somebody else is going to be the fast truck. So that's when you should be monitoring that handy talkie, because when a Mayday is given, usually when the shit hits the fan and there's a lot of radio traffic, everybody's trying to get their message through, this, that, and the other thing. And, Maydays can be missed. And so that's, one of your jobs to listen out for that Mayday. What else? Let's see. That's pretty much what I have. I mean, go ahead, take it away, and then let me gather my thoughts here. That was the point on responding in.
Yeah, Cap.
Yeah, well, exactly what Hank said. It's monitoring the radio, whether it's the fireground radio or the department radio, or whatever your department uses. In a lot of areas, you have to switch frequencies going to a different department, whatever. You want to be on the fireground frequency. You want to be listening. You want to listen to any of the traffic if they use a different frequency for truck-to-truck radio. I remember one of our first runs in 288, we went over into Corona, and John Ielpi, you could see the apple didn't fall too far from the tree with that kid. He comes over to me and he goes, "Cap, I just heard a Mayday." I didn't hear it. The chief who I'm talking to didn't hear it. None of our other guys heard it, but he heard it, and he was right. It was a Mayday. It was very muffled, and everybody thinks it's going to be a crystal clear message. And very often, guys are in distress, or they're moving to try to get out of wherever they are, and their radio transmissions are not clear. So be aware of that, and having somebody who can really listen up is a real good thing. Some department did tests years ago with guys with a dedicated guy at the command post with a headset on, right? With a headset on, and he picked up radio transmissions, what they call emergency traffic in a large part of the country, much more readily than somebody who was just listening with the collar mic like we have, the remote mic. So it's just something to think about, having somebody monitoring just the department transmissions. But like Hank said, Mayday transmissions as you're coming in, that's a key. Obviously, you're going to be going to work. Multiple alarms transmitted on your way to the assignment, all right? The thing elevates, and that means conditions are deteriorating or conditions are worse. The more we size it up, it's in multiple buildings now, whatever the conditions are. Water issues. If you get one thing out of what I'm saying right now, you hear something with water issues, we need to be augmented. We need additional lines stretched, all right? That's a real key. This is a deteriorating condition. All right. So pay attention to that. There's so many of our fires, not only in the FDNY, but all over the country, that one of the key problems that they have is water supply, and not enough water where we need it right now. Access and egress, being able to get in and get out. Whether it's barred windows and gates, commercial buildings locked up tight, there's 100 different scenarios. Having access to the building, whether we don't have access, that's a key thing. In the FDNY, for example, you get a residential building with bars on the windows. That's an automatic extra truck just for that, and generally a tower ladder to try to address it. Try to get in front of the building. And the last one I'll give you, just as a short list, we could go on and on and on about this. But if you're coming in and they can't, it's a serious fire. They're stretching lines, but they can't find the fire. Okay, that should be a real eye opener. Be prepared to deploy and have the attitude. Hank just talked about it a second ago. Don't go into this. It's so easy to become complacent with this. Everybody's doing it. Oh, I got to go. My department just went an hour ago. All right, out here just went an hour ago for a fast truck. All right, they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything the last 9 times they went to that department. All right, but they have done things in the past. They have had to deploy. So you can't go in. Sooner or later, you're going to have to deploy. And, if you are of the wrong mindset, you're not going to be ready. It's just as simple as that.
Be prepared. As just
Yeah.
every time you're
Another
going,
thing,
it's going to happen, right, Cap?
Yes, generally there's a command post and there should be eyes on everything. But depending on the size of the building, if you're in a fast truck, besides monitoring the radio, you should be monitoring the conditions that you're looking at. If you get an officer inside saying, all right, we're hitting fire, we're knocking it down, well, we think we're getting it, and you're looking at it, and then on a different side of the building, you're seeing, you're not seeing gray or white smoke, you're seeing heavy black smoke pushing. Right. Well, then guess what? He may be hitting an area in one spot, but this fire is well advanced. So, that's information that, as the extra set of eyes outside, you can quickly get that to the command post. So, the chief in charge can then make a decision on what's the next move. So. Yep. Ears and eyes on the fast.
Right. I got basically the same. One of my pet peeves, like you said, guys don't take it serious. You see them bullshitting with other guys at the fire. And my pet peeve is the belt buckle's dragging, the coat's open. That 2, 3, 4 seconds could mean one of the brothers' life. By the time you should have your belt, your vest buckled, your coat closed, and ready to go. Right. You got to take the fast truck seriously. Like Capt Murphy would say, look for other ways of egress. Is there another exterior basement entrance? Have a plan in case somebody goes down in the basement. You have a tie-off point outside where you could throw the rope, hand the guy a bite of rope, not the end of the rope. Paul Baldwin once told me, somebody hands you the end of a rope, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. If they hand you a bite, they have the simple concept of a 2-to-1 where you can clip onto that, you can pull it back up. And not only listening to the messages coming in, but listen to the voices coming in. You could always tell in a guy's voice when he's panicked or when shit's not going right. Not only the words he's saying, but how they're saying it. When I used to drive my brother, I used to say it all the time. I would hear panic in the guy's voice. I say, they ain't got this, man. They don't have this. We're not, they can't find a fire. You can tell by the way they're saying it, not just by the words.
Chat, Petey.
Yeah, I see it. I'll take care of it.
And have the tools necessary staged with you. Again, be proactive. Don't if you got a building with tons of bars, have extra tools that are going to help you get those bars out of the way if you get put to work. Same thing. If maybe you're going to need a pavement break, whatever it is, be proactive and have it staged. Don't look at it like, oh, I got to take this freaking thing off the rig now, then I got to put it back. You got a job there. Everybody works as a team. When everybody does their job, we greatly increase the odds that everybody's going to go home at the end of that job. Somebody starts varying from it, and then the next guy, and then what? Then everything breaks down, and that what's an inherently already a dangerous job becomes a lot more dangerous or deadly.
Yeah.
If we ever showed up to the scene and I could tell we were going to go to work at some point, but the chief just put us, said, hey, Louis, stand fast for a second. I almost always would send the 2 outside guys. I would tell them, go in the back, see what's go down the alley, see what we have back there, and then come back and let me know what's going on. And then if they came back and said, Lou, there's window bars the whole way down. They got one ladder in the back going up to the second floor, whatever, that's fire escape. I would relay that to the chief, but give him something that I could do, right? Say, Chief, you got window bars the whole way along the back, along the driveway. I'm going to get my guys over there. We're going to start taking stuff off, or I'm going to put another ladder in the back. 99.9% of the time, you know what he's going to tell me?
Do it.
Abso-fucking-lutely, right? He's going to say, dude, because I'm giving him something that he's going to realize that's a problem, right? I'm going to fix the problem. I don't want to stand in the street either. But as a fast truck, that will be a little different. This is more of a, coming in as a squad or a specialized company where you're standing around for a second. But again, I'm not talking about where, there's the lines coming out the window and there's white smoke and there's, I'm talking about when something is really happening and you could tell that he's going to need help pretty soon. So
I got one more pet peeve. Don't turn your bottle on if you're the third due engine standing in the fucking street. I can't stand listening to pass alarm going off unchecked constantly. The fast truck, the third due engine, the fourth due engine, everybody's pass alarm. It's like they got their head in their ass. That's there for a reason, man. Shut your bottle off until you're going in.
You see that in every video now these days.
Oh my God.
Every video's got that on it. It's unbelievable. But one of the things, John Vigiano had a great list of. I got to see if I can dig it out. Of things for when you were assigned a fast truck, and 176 was assigned a fast truck, what he wanted done, and it was just like what you were talking about, Lou. A lot of the companies in that area operated that way, but it was very proactive. You were looking ahead, you were trying to reduce,
get ahead of it. Yeah, get ahead of it.
And maybe in a future one of these, I'll see if I can find that and dig it out and just go over it. But it's there's so much you can do. But still covering your position, that you have to be there. And the other thing is, like with special units on what do you call it? Expanding operations. A lot of those special tools that we carry sometimes can be used. Hank alluded to it a minute ago. But you think about some of the stuff that we have, especially when you have compromised egress, like bars and gates and roll downs and stuff like that. We carry a lot of stuff that can be very, very helpful, and sometimes we don't think about it ourselves because we all came from truck companies or engine companies and we're thinking about doing what we always do, that's, you got to kind of think out of the box a little bit sometimes,
Boys.
All right, Petey.
All right, here we go. This one should be interesting. Number 4, some search rope tips.
All right. You want me to start it?
Sure. I'm going to go get my search rope.
Nice.
Go right ahead.
Go ahead, Hankel.
Okay. All right. Pretty much, look, we're not going to be using search ropes in private dwellings, maybe in a basement fire. But it can be a very effective tool. It can be a life-saving tool. I know, and again, I'm recanting a story I know I told on a previous podcast, but we had this would be one of Louis' favorites. We had a subcellar fire in a loft. And the chief we got there and he was, I think at that point on the way down, I think he had already banged in a third alarm. And we get there and it was, the officer reported, and he says, listen, rescue, they haven't found a fire yet. I need you to go down there and find a fire. So we had the search ropes. Pretty much, we had the old style ones that were heavier ropes that we would have in what they would call a lumberjack roll. But then obviously the one that DENIS just had, the bag.
And this is out now too, right? I mean, this has been replaced for quite a while too, right?
Okay, but that's pretty much what we had. So we would take 2 of them because a lot of times you need, the length that you. I forget how many feet were in there.
150 feet. I think.
Might not be enough because. All right, here's the first tip. Here's the first tip. On the ground floor of this loft that we were going into, there was a light to a light medium smoke condition. Okay, but obviously, that's not where the fire was. The fire was 2 floors below. So we make sure that when you attach that search line, you attach it to some place that you have to anticipate that by the time you go down and do what you have to do, if conditions worsen and you get back up, and let's say you've tied that line to the newel post. Well, in a loft, it's in the center of the building usually. So you might get up there and now you've reached the end of your search rope. And which direction do I go to my exit? How do I get out of here? So a lot of times we would tie it I remember one time tying it to the parking meter that was out
On the street. Yeah,
right.
no doubt.
right outside the entrance doors, tying it there, and then you would go in, as a team. A lot of times it was 2 teams of 2. You would drop down, and when the one rope didn't get to where you needed to go, you would attach the next rope to that, and then off you would go. But it was very important to have it attached to a place where
Guaranteed to be clear.
Right, exactly. Because we all know when you're in a fire, right now you pull into a fire, they don't even have it yet. Odds are it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And you want to make sure that if you got to bail out, or even if you don't have to bail, but maybe your mask is going off, you got to get out. You want to be able to get to the clear air quickly. And then the only other thing I have is, it's not always a 1-person or a 2-person search where you're holding on. You could have in a large, say, uncompartmented area or compartmented area, like a warehouse, a Home Depot, even a large office floor in a very smoky condition. You can actually do a group search where we used to carry our own 25-foot line with a dog clip on it, and say the officer would go in with the one line, and he might try to go in as far or as straight as possible. One guy would go to the left and one guy would go to the right. You'd clip your line onto the center search line, and every time you came to a little, whether it was we'll call it an alleyway, down between desks or in between lumber or whatever, you could go down, search it, and then get yourself back on the main line. And, because it's not always perfect straight line. Sometimes you're going around desks. I mean, Dennis, you remember when we would teach that out at the Nassau Fire Academy, we had obstructions and stuff, but you still could get a fairly, comprehensive search done of a large area. And you can use it in conjunction there, with the thermal imaging camera. The officer who's got the main line, he can keep an eye, he can look what's going on, check for fire, and he could also check on his members. Those are the 2 tips I have using the search ropes.
Cap, I'm going to let you go now in a sec, but I always used to say to the guys, I'm like, listen, and we used to practice the search rope quite a bit, more than, for the oddball chances, maybe a couple times a year that you maybe would even think about using the thing. I used to say, if I was in the building and they're like, Louis, don't worry, we're setting up the search rope, we're coming to get you, I would have been like, shit, I'm fucked here. You know what I mean? Like, there's no chance. You know what I mean? Just so many things could go wrong. But go ahead, Cap.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's just it's a tremendous amount of work, and you got to practice it. That's the big thing. That's why we used to do it so much. But you know what? This is a primary thing where you'll see a special operations company get the call for that. A squad, a rescue.
Oh yeah.
All right, we got guys deep in a commercial building. We got a guy that's unaccounted for. Went in with the truck, can't find him. And like you said, I mean, it's one of those things where you want to know how to use these tools. You want to know, you want to feel comfortable with it. And especially now with the thermal camera, use it in conjunction with that. It's a great tool. You use tag lines off of the bag. The officer holds the bag, has the bag, it winds out. Use the second bag if you have to. What I used to like to do, the way I set up these, I had a strobe light on the bag with the officer, and I had another one that I left at the entrance. The entrance door. And we did that for years. And one of the things, we have a tag line that went into the rig, with like Hank said, 25 feet. Everybody had one in their pocket, and that was your tag line. So the officer would be holding the main bag. He'd have a light on that. He would direct everybody out. He would be the guy with the camera. He would, the other guys were blind going out, but he would direct them and come back, and then you move up another 10, 15 feet. We did that at the Rock quite a few times.
We practiced that a lot.
We practiced that, and then we practiced it back in town too. But so you get better and better at it. I mean, I can remember one fire we went to in Manhattan. I think both Hank and Kevin were there. We wound up. Hank was like a different guy when he got into Manhattan. He's wheeling into the Midtown Tunnel. He became Superman when we got out of the Midtown Tunnel. Yeah. But you want to talk about making an impact? I talked about that other fire before, but this was another one where the chief of department came up to me afterwards, where the fire commissioner came up to me afterwards and congratulated us on a great job that we did. And it was something similar to what we were just talking about, putting two search ropes together, going through one store, out the back into a rear yard. It was a Dwayne Reed, I remember.
Yep.
I was at that job too.
Oh, okay, and the whole place had collapsed.
Yeah.
We fought. Now from the outside, we have to force our way into the basement of the Dwayne Reed in the back. Get in. We're in a locked room back there. We got to force our way out of that. We find the escalator, not the escalator, the conveyor belt.
Conveyor belt.
Went down a conveyor
Yeah,
belt.
we had to
Well,
go down like this much between there. We had to screw
that's where
down.
being in the supermarket business was helpful. You know? It was like, but that was one of my best jobs in the whole time in squad.
I remember,
and we were able to put that out. Boom.
I remember you giving because they couldn't find the fire. That's
Right.
and I remember
It had all collapsed.
you got on the handy talkie. I forget it was what Division 1, I think it was.
Gino Savastano, Chief
Right?
Savastano.
And you said we've located the fire, and it was like there was like silence for a few seconds, and it was like, yeah, right, what? Right, and then we had to send, I think, 2 guys back to find an engine to bring them back together.
Maybe that's where I got scarred from the triple sub cellar. Maybe it was that.
Oh.
Yeah, but that
Scarred
wasn't
him for life.
that
No.
was only one commercial cell.
All right.
Yeah, that wasn't that bad. But that was a great employment of the search rope, a great employment of trying a different direction from the way everybody else was going. And what happened with the on the first floor, they're pushing into this Dwayne Reed. They've got it pretty much knocked down, and the whole ceiling collapsed. Right, so they could. It wasn't that they wouldn't get to the rear or anything. They couldn't get to the rear. They were all blocked. So all we did was we took a route through the basement, down, under, and up, and we came up in the back, and it was right there. That was
I
it.
remember that.
So, but yeah, with the search ropes, those would be some of my tips. Attaching bags together, which we know they use a different rope today. I know in the city, but I like the idea of the strobes at the entrance. It's a good visual marker. You're getting close. We've had guys that have had very bad experiences and were very close to the exit and didn't realize it. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
that's all I put that in there. I remember the first time I did that was before we had search ropes, and I used my personal rope that was in my pocket, right? And we were in a storefront church in Bedford-Stuyvesant. And we forced the door. The fire's in the back, or actually would be behind the whatever it would be called, the sacristy or whatever, behind the altar. And so we're entering from the back of the church. You got to go all the way through all these folding chairs, which we're in the process of knocking over as we go through them like bulls in a china shop. And I left the strobe, this really nice strobe I bought. It was expensive, by the door. Right by the door to guide us.
You need a search rope to find your stroke.
That's exactly what happened. Later on, I come out after the engine came in, they knocked the fire down, everything went normally, no problem. And one of the guys in the engine goes, "Hey Murph, I found your strobe." And I looked at him, I go, "Think about that for a second." And he's like, "What?" And I go, "Think about why I left it there."
Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
Yeah, what the
hell are you doing?
Yeah, but anyway,
I got 3 quick ones. You practice with the search rope. Make sure you're wearing your gloves because it's a whole different ball game if you're not practicing with your gloves. Like Captain said, team concept. I had one job when I was in a truck. We had a detailed officer. This guy was a salty guy from the Bronx somewhere. I don't know how many years he had on. We catch a job in a commercial factory, abandoned factory. He throws me the rope. I tie it off, and he's gone. He's gone. He just runs in the building. He finds a fire. I don't know where the cam man was. So it was me deploying the rope by myself. It's not an easy thing to do by yourself. And the other thing, a little tip is like Hank and Captain Murphy were talking about tag lines. Make sure your tag line, the beaner on it, is large enough because we tie those knots in it. If you got to get out in a hurry, you don't want them getting held up on. I had a small bean on it one time. I was getting caught up on the knots. And if you're trying to get your ass out of there in a fucking hurry, you don't want to get held up with a small beaner.
there's a lot of people teaching around the country, Kevin, with the direction and the depth knots. In other words, how
Yeah,
the
yeah, 2 knots, 3
the,
knots.
the
That was
distance
my
and
tip.
direct. Yeah. All right. Well, that's fine.
That was
no
it.
problem.
No, that was it.
But my point with the direction and the distance knots is make sure that those direction and distance knots are not tied in any manner that they obstruct,
hooked up. Yeah.
that you get jammed up trying to move.
Well, that was what I was going to say, Cap. Like Kevin, when we first started that, I remember early on, we were putting the knot in either the officer would put the knot, overhand knot in, and then hook your tagline into that. And it just became, in the dark, it was just a pain in the ass, right?
Yeah.
It was just another thing that could definitely go wrong.
Yeah.
So then the officer would hold it, right? He would hold both of them. You would clip onto the line, hold it so that it wouldn't slide along the search rope, right? And then you could do your half moon or whatever. But in the end, the most important thing that I felt, I'm sure everybody knows this, is to try and keep the thing off the floor as best you can, just as you go, half hitches all around the place. And again, if you're changing direction, you could easily come off of that if it's not a straight run, right? We used to practice in the school. You remember, when that school was getting demolished over in Maspeth? I forget where it was, but I used to practice there all the time. And the officer with the camera that's really the only way that thing works. Yeah. Honestly, the way the way that works. Otherwise, it's just a pain in the ass. But I would say keeping it off the floor is the number one priority.
All right, boys.
The search line is like a lot of other specialty tools that you carry that might only get used once or twice a year, but when you need it, you need it, and it should be in good working order. Not that there's a lot to go, bad with a rope, but it still needs to be checked. Make sure there's no cuts and abrasions, and that it's not knotted up where you can't get it out of the bag. So. It's you have to be in that mindset when I'm just repeating, you got to be into the job, not on the job. And that means maintaining all of your tools. Some get used every day, some get used once a year, but that's going to make the difference when it's needed. And you need to train with the stuff that you don't use that often. That's the only way you're going to be proficient at it.
And you just turned into Charlie Henry there. Hey, bro, don't just
what are you
get
talking
on
about,
job.
bro? Go get on it, bro. Get in it.
Job, bro. We'll have him on one day. All right, Pete, next topic.
Okay, number 5.
Bro.
Hey, bro. Number 5, here we go. How fast is too fast when responding? What are our acceptable versus unacceptable risks?
I don't know. I've never gone that fast.
I don't have a lot to say, but I'll start it off. The only thing that was my mindset, and anytime I was teaching a younger person, to be a chauffeur, the first thing I would say to them is, you don't want to take a life while you're responding to save a life, because what good have you done? Okay. Yes, it's very easy to get hopped up. Your adrenaline's going. Maybe you're getting a lot of reports on the radio, and that'll also play into another tip. But the idea is to get there as fast as possible, but as safe as possible. You're transporting yourself and however many other members are in the truck, and you don't want to kill somebody. You don't want to kill them, and you don't want to kill somebody else while you're going to try to save a life. It's a risk reward. What are we responding to? Okay. And I know we've talked about this, the way some companies respond the same, whether it's to an elevator emergency or, but to me that dictates
290, 103.
Now, listen, if they say it's an elevator emergency and somebody's complaining about chest pains that are trapped in the elevator, that may step up the response a little bit. But if it's just, a stuck occupied or, something that's, not balls to the wall, that you drive accordingly. I know anytime, and I was a chauffeur for a long time. I always wanted to get there fast, but I would never blow into. I always covered the brake going through an intersection. That doesn't mean you're stepping on it, but you would get off the gas pedal. And again, if it was green, even if it was green, I would back off a little bit because you want to make sure there's not another rig coming by, because with your sirens going, you're not going to hear their sirens going. And if it was a red light, you obviously have to respect that red light. You're gonna slow down, make sure, especially nowadays, just what we talked about before, between some people with their blasting the stereos, or they got earphones on, or they're wrapped up in their phone or whatever. I've been on the interstate doing 75, and I've had people pass me literally looking at their phone while they're driving 75 on the interstate. So you're a paid professional. You have a responsibility. So yes, you want to get to the job. And let's face it, those rigs are not, they're not Ferraris. So, once you get them rolling, that's a lot of weight to stop.
Right.
So, that's where you have to temper, if we were on the LIE, all right. And traffic's moving, you're going to be pedal to the metal. If you're on Queens Boulevard and it's 5 PM, you're going to have to drive a little differently. So that's pretty much what I got.
Drive fast, take chances.
Next.
I would say that the 1020 response thing that the fire department, the FDNY, put in place was definitely a good thing. For gas leaks, second due gas leaks, right? Those guys would respond on a slow response. I think in my personal experience, there were guys who could drive balls to the wall and in control, right? Like you said, they were covering the brake. They could go as fast as the rig could go and still be in control. It was always the guy who was trying to be that guy who didn't have that skill or whatever, and was trying to, keep up to tradition of the firehouse or whatever, that I felt like that's where the problem lied, because he didn't have the skill that, a guy like probably Hank was driving, for how many years. This guy might get in the seat for a couple of years and think he has that skill, and he doesn't. And that's where there would be a little bit of a nomini patria to Spiritu Santi, my kind of.
Especially if you're in a seat on the right. Like,
helpless. Yeah. I mean, listen, I would tell guys, listen, you got me a little. I don't get shaky, but you got me a little
shaky. Shelly.
Yeah, I'm puckering a little bit.
Yeah. No doubt.
I got 2 quick ones, maybe 3. You can make up the time if, number 1, you know where you're going, and number 2, you have a fast turnout. Then maybe you don't have to drive quite as fast. You have a quick turnout that gets you out the door faster. Having said that, I've been at many times where the 14th Division with a certain chief was behind us, and we get to the job, and after the job's over, it's squad captain, can I see you at my car, please? And then I see the deputy chief doing one of these. Tell that guy who's driving to slow the fuck down. That happened a handful of times. So, but like Louis said, if you feel like you control it, I wasn't one that wasn't afraid of driving fast. So, what do you got, Cap?
Bobby Galleone said, "Gentlemen, start your engines."
Can I ask a quick question, guys? Like just general question. When I drove a truck for a certain delivery company, they gave you a distance for stopping, right? What's the average distance that you're going to need to stop for every 10 miles an hour or whatever it is that you guys are doing in a rig?
It's astronomical.
You
wouldn't even believe
it. It's probably exactly the same as what you got, Pete. So it's just you're going faster. You can go faster because you're using lights and sirens. People do, to a certain extent yield. All I can tell you is there wasn't a company that I was ever associated with that was known for a slow response. So it was, it's just one of those things. But you can drive efficiently, quickly, and like has been mentioned here a couple of times, and be relatively safe. It's just you got to be cautious. I fairly late in my career almost had a spectacular accident. I was driving Rescue 2. I never had an accident. I never had a chargeable accident, knock on wood. But I almost had a spectacular accident, would have made the newspapers, with ladder 174. And it was just blind luck. maybe a little skill, but mostly blind luck that we didn't collide. And it was my fault. It was the fact that I didn't hear them coming. Like you just said a minute ago, you have the, whatever it is, you don't hear the sirens. Your siren is blocking it out, and it was almost a pure T-bone type of thing. Yeah, it was literally. I could have passed a note from myself to the officer in 174.
This is going to hurt.
Whoa. we were this close. So the chauffeur in 174 did a very good job. I'd like to think that I did an okay job with seeing it at the last second and not hitting any parked vehicles and not hitting them, because it was my fault. But what happened is, and the lesson out of this is, they were coming from picking up the meal. So they shopped at the other end of their response area. A year or two later, I was working there as a covering officer, but I didn't realize any of this at that time. So we were going to a building collapse with a guy trapped. As it turned out, as you were saying a minute ago, it was a bullshit call, because the guy trapped was a sanitation worker in the sanitation office having lunch. And it was such a piece of shit office that the guy stepped through the floor that was all rotted. And now he was trapped, like his leg was like through the floor, like in Chinese handcuffs. He couldn't pull it out, so he wound up. Listen, they could have done it. They could have gotten this guy out, but so it was not that big a deal. But yet here are two companies going to beat the band to get into this thing. And like, I never expected them, because I thought they were already there for two minutes, and that's not with a little bit of time. That's like with over 10 years on the job. So it can happen. And all I can say is, like we said before, you gotta be on your game. You got to be aware of what's going on. And today with the general public, it's one thing with our own people, but that's kind of like the worst thing you can have is an accident with another fire truck. You really don't want that to happen. And Captain Downey was sitting next to me, and he was very appreciative of my driving skills. The whole rest of the way back, every other word was "fucko."
Hey,
but he let me drive the next day, so he couldn't have been that bad.
Yeah, he wasn't that upset.
Garrett Lingman wants to know, how many times does 2 go into 111?
Garrett actually did bring up what, not to belabor this, and we're going to move on, but he's saying, if someone is killed in a wreck with your rig, in court you will hear the term due regard. If they prove you didn't exercise due regard, you may be going to prison.
And Garrett is 100% right. That's happened around the country. I think there's 2 guys in prison right now, in jail right now, out in the Midwest for an ambulance accident, which is basically the same thing, So he's right. Legally we're bound. They tell you when you get trained, what the legal ramifications are. Sure. We kind of fudge those, but you know what? It's the real deal. It's all fun and games like we're talking about here until somebody gets hurt. When I first got on the job, I had to go to, my family was in the grocery business, and one of our checkers was killed in a car with a boyfriend by one of the engine companies on the Queens border. No way. And it killed her outright, and that was a really tough feeling being there, family knowing I'm a firefighter, it's just, so it is real. I mean, I don't mean to make light of it, and it's something we all need to treat with respect. You look at the weight; the vehicles aren't getting any smaller; they're getting bigger, they're getting heavier, they're faster. So it's just something we got to get there. We got to operate. We can't be paralyzed. So you got to get there. You got to get there with, like we said, due regard. But you have to be careful, because it's not only a life that we may save; it's also your career could be over in a heartbeat. So it's just, so be careful.
Yeah. I heard the bell, but I don't care. Okay. I got one quick story that happened to me. They said all the years I was a chauffeur, I never had a chargeable accident. I did have one that could have been, and it's about going too fast in reverse. So I'm working in one, I'm the chauffeur in one, and we get a local box that we would respond to. I think it was like 50th between 9th and 10th. It's pouring rain out. We're in the block, and 54 and 4 are in. Turned out to be a 1018. So as we're coming out of the building, I'm already back at the rig, and Manhattan Dispatch is calling us. Rescue respond. We're getting a few phone calls on this. So now, you guys hear that. So, all right, I got guys that are going to back me out. They got the flashlights are on. I got to back halfway out the block and then get onto the avenue. So, like I said, it was like a torrential downpour. I'm backing out. I'm trying to look in the mirrors. And as I'm getting right to where I'm going to swing out to the avenue, I stop my turn, and the guys behind me on the hand talk, all right, come on, you got it. So I hear that, and I'm probably going a little too fast. And as I'm swinging out on the avenue, the right front bumper, you know how it sticks out on the rig, I catch
the car in the corner.
There's a Cadillac on the corner, and from the rear door to the taillight, I cut open like a can of tuna fish. So now, like, oh shit, So now we're not going to get to this box. Because I just opened this guy's car up like a can opener. The guy comes out like 60 seconds later, and oh my God, that's my car. All right. So we're like, all right, we're going to take the report. He's like, no, forget it. Just no. We're like, what? I look at your car. He's like, just go. So we get in the rig and we go. And
allegedly. Never
heard a word after that. And the only thing we could deduce was that area was kind of known as a red light area. So he might have been having a visit to somebody that he would have had to explain to his wife in the report. What was your car doing on that street? That you had an accident.
Maybe he was with
So
the Gumata.
We probably figured he didn't want to have to explain anything. So he just said, I was parked over here and I came out. So
I love those guys.
So that was my backing out in the rainstorm too fast and cutting the guy's car open. But
how about backing up one day and you hear this beep, beep, beep. Stop! You're supposed to say stop first. And then you get a refractor that comes up to the window and goes, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, the guy told me stop after I hit the fucking car, bro.
And who showed up right behind you after you hit the car?
Chief.
The fucking division. We were back. We missed the car.
Stop.
Stupid asses.
Oh, wow. Okay, boys.
Right,
let's move on to greener pastures. Tip number 6. Some tips for window bars.
Yeah, let's move along, guys. We got to get to that last topic, like underwater car fires or something.
Nice. Look at that.
Oof, shots fired.
All right. So am I starting the Dennis? You
Throw
want
a
to
few out there.
This is a great place for special operations units to use some of their tools and equipment. Obviously, and there's a lot of, you hear this term thrown around a lot, window bars, but there's a lot of window bars and gates, a lot of different types, I should say, and they're very different, and the amount of time and effort you need to get them can vary greatly. If I'll give you an example, a window gate, in a residential window in a frame building is not going to be very challenging to most experienced firefighters. Window bars set in cement are a completely different animal, and they're going to take different tools, a different amount of time to get them out. But so you got to know what's in your area. And definitely if you have these in your area, you want to size them up and you want to be thinking ahead of time, what tools can I use on these? And we have more tools now than we've ever had to be able to deal with these, so it's, we've always had, most of the time we've had saws, and torches and things like that. But a lot of these window bars that are in frame buildings, like Dan, where you worked in East New York, those are not, they can be challenging, but many times
pop them right up.
They come right out. They come out surprisingly easily, but on the other hand, when you have the real job where you really got to get in there, that's going to be the time, Murphy's Law, that it's
he's got
not
17-inch leg screws in there.
Yeah. What was that? There was a building. It was famous. They used to call it the bird cage on I think it was Evergreen Avenue, like down between the Interborough Parkway and Atlantic Avenue. And it was a building. You must have seen it, Hank. You were right there for a while. It was completely barred. This entire building was barred. It's 175 is first due there.
I had pictures of it in my old carousel. I wish I would have never got. But that whole area we call it the birdcage houses because everything was barred from first floor, second floor, front porches, and then where there would be a screen door. Normally, you'd have a barred door.
Yeah,
You know,
it's like you're going into jail. The biggest tip that I could give, and not getting into any particular type of bar or gate, would be, especially for the Chiefs, which they already know, it's in like the FDNY's procedure. But for the rest of the country, when you pull up or your first new unit pulls up, is to put a policy or procedure in your department that immediately, when that is observed, you see that, or it's in with your computer dispatch system, that we have this building and it has, or we have these buildings that have this particular type of bars and gates, that this much additional resources are added to the alarm as soon as it comes in. We have, that's the one thing we have today. You have no problem with putting stuff into the computer and it will spit it right out when that address kicks in, so it's that would be the biggest thing. Get 2 more ladder companies, get a heavy rescue, whatever, get a squad, additional units. In New York, they add a tower ladder just so that you can operate off the platform if they can get a position, if one's not on the box. So that would be some of the things. And, we could do a whole, like Hank said at the beginning, we could do a whole class on bars and gates, techniques and tools. We don't want to get into that right now.
So, all right. Well, I'm going to just ditto the one point you just made, because we know FDNY does it, and we didn't do it all the time. I don't know when that policy took effect. Maybe it was in the 80s but the first arriving unit, and this, like I said, this could be anywhere in the country. First arriving unit, you got window bars, give that report, and that should initiate additional units. So now you're hearing it from 2 experienced guys. So shame on you guys if you don't do it. Secondly, whoever the first due outside vent is, until help arrives, yes, you have other duties you need to do. That's part of your size up. If you're going to vent a little bit, whatever, maybe you have to throw a ladder to a window, make a search. But depending on what those duties are, if you get them done and the bars haven't started and nobody started on the bars, then you need to start. That's part of your duties as the outside vent man, is initiate that. Hopefully, the second due or the additional trucks coming in or special units can take that job over from you. But initiate it, because there are guys going inside and things could turn bad rapidly. And if they make it to that window where the bars are, if they're not off, that could be where they end up dying. So, try to be proactive. And by doing so, when you pull up, maybe you need to bring an additional tool that you normally wouldn't do. Or if you're coming in as that fast, truck, or the additional barred unit, again, don't just go there with your hook and your Halligan. There's plenty of tools. You got your metal cutting blade saw. You could use on a first floor or basement. You got pedal cutters that, we use it on extrications. That can be used. You got sawzall with metal blades. You're in a department that doesn't have a big budget. Well, you know what? Just like with extrication, use the hacksaw, take 2 blades and put the teeth so they're opposing each other, just like you would do to cut an A post. Well, if all you got is a hacksaw, but you got 4 points and you got to use the hacksaw, put the 2 blades. So at least every move you make, forward and backward, you're cutting, so there should be no reason, we don't have the money to get this. I think everybody can afford a sawzall at this point. I don't care if you're, in East Gedong, but be positive. Don't leave it sitting on the rig and say, oh, I should have brought this, bring it with you. Maybe a small torch. We've talked about that before. If you got to work off a ladder, you got all those tools, that you can handle off a ladder, the pedal cutter, or hanging a small torch if need be. And if you're cutting bars up above the first floor, and I'm not talking about like the window gate, we're talking about the bars. Well, there could be guys operating on bars below you or walking below your ladder. You make sure that they know what you're doing, or before you make that last cut, you look down, because if you don't, just as it drops, that's when somebody's going to come around and catch the bar right in the head. Or
don't hang on to it. That's for shit sure.
Right. So, be aware of that.
Seen that happen a few times.
So again, those are just the quick tips. We're not going to get into the whole.
Right.
Yeah.
I got two quick little ones. Depending on what the complementary tools you have, like Hank said, you may not have all these tools, but when we were in the squad, we would take obscure tools and try to make them work. So what we found works is not the rabbit tool, but the bunny tool with a 4x4 you pump it, it pops. If you pump at the points, it'll pop the gate right off for a couple of pumps. Or that little shitty Hamatro spreader that we had, hand pump Hamatro, that works pretty well too.
Yeah.
And also works for if a kid puts his head in, you wonder how he got his goddamn head in the thing. You put the bunny tool with the 4x4, spreads them wide open, pull the kid right out. Two tools that almost every company probably has sitting in there that you can use to your advantage.
Right. Right. And anytime you have a kid, especially with something stuck, if you can use a tool that's not going to make noise or spark or scare them, then that's a home run. And that's where a lot of those hydraulic tools come in.
Yeah, I like to burn the little bastard. I heat it up good. Burn him.
I would say the most important thing for me when I was, especially in the truck, if I was going in first, and I could see that there was window bars, and I could hear the OV giving me a report that, he's got two bars, the two windows, the bars are off the window in the rear, or I'm working on the ones in the alleyway. Just communication, because when you're in there, that's always going to be something that used to hang over the back of my head that, be careful, don't go too far, especially if you're searching for the fire, just because you don't have, I don't have a way out as of right now, except the way I came in, and that might not be the way. Taking window bars when there's nothing showing there, that's another thing, right? So just because the fire's in the front of the building, you get to the rear, and there's a couple of window bars in the rear, doesn't mean that you just pop the door and go in the rear, because things can happen, like the Capt was saying, or Jake was saying, very fast. And next thing you know, there's a guy showing up at that, the last thing you want to be is a fireman trying to get out, and, you're in jail. So,
Or being a fireman, watch that guy burn.
Yeah, forget it. Outside, because you didn't pull the thing. And Hank hit it right on the head. The first floor ones are usually pretty easy. You could reach up with even with the hook. A lot of times the guys, we used to pry them off with the hooks real quick. But the ones up on the second floor, especially if you're on a ladder by yourself, I seen guys like holding on to it and then pop the last one. And then what happens is it fucking swings around. So again, make sure you gotta let it go.
Yeah.
But make sure if you see a guy before you do anything, you don't want to get hit with that fucking thing. That's for sure.
You know what? Again, not to get into the actual techniques, but this is one thing a lot of guys, probably the most likely gate that people are going to see, firefighters are going to see on a national level, is a full bar gate on a wood frame building, right? I mean, that's more than likely what they're going to see most of the time. But one of the things is a real time saver is take the two top bolts if you can get them and just pull it down.
Okay.
All right, it's a lot of guys. If you've never done it, you don't think of it.
I said simple, but it's easy. You only have to do two, pull it right down.
But again, we could talk all night about different types of bars and gates, and and how you take them.
Some are in the mortar. It all depends on what you're.
So
fires in the water. All right, Pete, go ahead.
So before we get to the next one, we do have one special tip that we have to cover, and you guys know the deal.
Oh, the health and safety tip.
That is right. It's the First Responder Center for Excellence, guys, which is the First Responder Center for Excellence is a non-for-profit organization dedicated to protecting the lives and livelihoods of first responders. Their education and research initiatives aim to bring greater awareness and understanding to the challenges of the health, safety, and well-being of firefighters, EMS personnel, and other first responders. The goal is to reduce the line of duty injuries and deaths, as well as occupational illnesses, and they are an affiliate of the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation. Now, today's old school health and safety tip of the day is pretty simple one, guys. This is the basic stuff right here. Annual medicals and early detection save lives. Both are important for firefighters. I mean, Kev, you just, you just went to the doctor, right? I mean, I'm not trying to give any personal information, but you just got a good news from the doctor. You're doing well and healthy, right?
I went because I felt I had some problems going on here. I had some things removed. They sent them out. It came back non-cancerous. So I'm happy about that. But you got to be proactive. My brother's was not. He refused to go for anything above baseline. And now he's dead. So you don't want to wind up like the rug.
Oh, you mean, I thought you were talking about Steve. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry.
No, I'm talking about the rug.
No, the rug. I'm sorry.
You got to take care of your health. If you truly love your family, take care of your health.
Yeah, man.
Get yourself checked
Absolutely.
out.
Definitely get yourself checked out, guys. Head on over to firstrespondercenter.org or take your phone out, point it at the squiggly lines on the right side of the screen here. That is the QR code. It'll take you right there from your phone app on your phone. That's it. Boom.
All right.
All
Good
right.
enough. Go to number 7.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, boys. It's number, actually, is it number 7? Yes, it is. Situation: a quick knockdown at a basement fire through the basement windows. Yay or nay? Ooh.
Right, Cap.
Dennis, you want-
I'll go. Well, this is very popular today in the fire service because of the research that was done in the last decade, specifically the fire tests at
Governor's Island.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm not a big knocker of indirect or transitional attack. And transitional attack is when you start at the outside and you work inside. I think in certain situations we've always done that. In that specific situation, that's been done many times. Not all the time, and not even the majority, but many times. In other words, where we couldn't get in, and there was cellar windows in a private dwelling, hit it from the outside. That's fine. It's also you got to be very careful when you do that. It's got to be very well coordinated, because very often cellars below grade entrances, which is what that question references, have other entrances. So do you know that there's nobody's main entry from the other side or down the stairs? If you can guarantee that, if the incident commander is confident of that, then it'll work. And, I've seen it used, and I've seen it used in the FDNY, but it's not used very often. Usually it's used, it's the direct attack, the offensive attack, aggressive interior attack, but it can work. I'll give you an example of when it can't work and why it's got to be tightly coordinated. Fire department that I belong to out here on Long Island lost a firefighter before I was a member in a basement. And most of the guys that were there attributed to lines being placed for no other reason than somebody basically saw fire with no coordination. There was no incident commander on the scene, from what I understand. It wasn't coordinated. And, a fire captain, let's say, saw fire venting out a basement window, decided to put the line in the window, kind of like a moth to a flame thing. This is like in the 1970s, all right? And a firefighter was killed in the basement. There were firefighters in the basement. Several of them were burnt. They managed to get out. And when it was all accounted for, one of the firefighters was missing. Added to that, as I think I've talked about it in other presentations here, he had a common name. He had siblings in the fire department. So in other words, the family name was, let's say, Smith. Oh, did Smith get out? Oh, yeah, he's right over there, except that was Smith's brother. Smith was actually still in the basement. Okay. So those kind of things are the kind of things that can crop up and trip you up. And you got to be very careful, and it's got to be coordinated. Is it a tool to have in the toolbox? I believe it is. But and there are times when it can be appropriate. So.
Okay. Well, so my answer is I guess on the same lines as yours, Dennis. Again, I know studies. And I'm old school, so that's my disclaimer. I'm old,
Right.
But
Well,
I'm
you're
saying
just old.
80, well, old, but I still taught you more. I was able to get through that thick skull of yours. I'm 80% no, 20% yes.
Right.
And that story you just told actually gives my argument a little more credence, because I know, again, we've talked, it wasn't so much cellar fires, but hitting from the outside. And I had made the comment about, you don't want to push fire and drive fire on top of somebody or involve an area that's not involved. And somewhere from one of the studies, it was like, well, they say no, you can't push fire or drive fire.
Yeah, I don't believe.
I think that's bullshit.
I do too.
Because we've seen it done.
Right.
And when we've been, I know I've been in a room when somebody's opened the line up from the outside, and the outcome is usually not good. And if they don't kill you or burn you too bad, when you get outside, there's usually a confrontation.
Right.
So to me, if there's a few qualifying factors. Number one is the whole basement involved? Is there fire coming out? Are you seeing fire out of every window All right, in that case, maybe you're going to have to hit it because odds of survival in there are slim to none, and you got to knock it down to get in there. But maybe there's fire coming out 2 windows in the rear, and is there any indication that it's an occupied basement? Is there an outside, basement entrance with a door? And I don't mean a Bilco door, but not that. I mean, you could have people. There's people that have lived in worse conditions, but does that show that there's a possibly somebody living down there? If you make it to if you're on the first floor, is there a door that goes down to the basement? So in those, to me, you have to try to get into that basement and not drive the fire onto somebody that you're going to cook. I mean, how do they, one way they cook lobsters is they steam them. Okay. Well, same thing. If you have somebody that's the fire's over their head, maybe they're unconscious on the floor or they're not unconscious, they're strapped or whatever. But they haven't been, burnt badly, or they haven't been burnt yet, or, they're still able to breathe somewhat. Now, all of a sudden you hit it from the outside and drive that fire and start turning everything into steam. You might have just done them in. So the hardest part, at least in my eyes, for a cellar or basement fire is the actual act of getting down there. Okay. Yes, there could be obstacles and Collier's mansion stuff. That's all difficult. But we all know that once you get down, it's usually a little more tenable for you. And then, if you got your line, you're making your search, it's a little easier. So for me, it's okay under certain circumstances. And to me, you should always try to get in the interior first. They're totally, we can't do anything. All right. Then you have to hit it from the outside, hit it. But other than that, I'm talking about an occupied, like a home basement. I'm not talking about a commercial here.
Right. Right.
That's a totally different animal. So that's my.
Go ahead, Roughopotamus.
I would say it's probably the same, very similar to that. I mean, the only time I've ever really seen us put a line in the window was when it was coming out every window.
Right.
Right. Whether it was a loss of water or they couldn't find the basement stair because it was in some weird spot. Maybe it wasn't behind the kitchen or whatever. Mm-hmm. I've only seen it maybe a handful of times, but I've seen guys, I mean, a lot where the fire was coming up out of this, up to the first floor. Yeah. And we went down the stairs. You know what I mean? So like you said, they stuck the line down there, tried to get whatever they could, and then fucking ran down the stairs and got to the bottom and, we put it out. Yeah. So, I don't like, I think, I don't even remember who the chief was. Was it Chief Salka? Was it Chief Salka at the show? Kev was talking about that, putting the line. He was arguing, not to put the line in the window.
Hit it hard from the yard.
Hit it hard from the yard guy.
Yeah, he was arguing with that guy. Yeah.
But I mean, I could understand like if it's getting out of control and you're going to get to the point where in a little while it's not going to be just in the cellar, it's going to be coming through the eaves, then you might want to just knock it down quick and move in. So
right.
Is hit it hard from the yard? Is that similar to the treacherous floor below?
Wow, who woke Hank up? Look at him. It's late for him to be firing shots.
His Geritol's kicking.
Good for my Geritol. Good for you. He's got intervened.
Loaded with Geritol, pal.
Good for you.
Loaded with Geritol, pal.
I'm gonna agree with everybody. Like Cap said, it has to be well coordinated. I guess used sparingly. It's a tool in the toolbox. I know my brother as a chief, he likes it. I mean, he says he uses that if he sees shit going south. And one more thing I wanted to comment on, Cap, when we said some guys don't believe that you can drive the fire. We had the job on Woodside Avenue one morning. Johnny DiRienzo was driving. I had the nozzle, Joe Hunter. Remember that commercial? Another company, I'm not going to say what company, opened up a 2.5 in the window and it came around the door and shot right. Shot right in our face. And I fell back, and Joe Hunter turns around and he goes, "Nice." I said, yeah. Then he says to me, "You all right?" I go, "Yeah, I'm all right." He goes, "Yeah, I'll let you know later, though. You got no eyebrows left."
Yeah, no,
Nice.
I feel the same way with a lot of that testing. I think that there's something to like everybody. They spend money on testing. You know, they do it. They set it up. And I think there were things to be learned out of it. But I'm not willing to throw, you know, in my case, you know, almost 50 years of observations of actual fires out the window. And I feel the same way you did. I've been standing on the back of a fire escape, take the windows out, and the line opens up in the front, and all of a sudden there's fire coming out with pretty, you know, with a lot of force out that same window that it was just smoke a minute ago, you know. So it's going to take a lot to convince me.
You've seen it with your own eyes.
Yeah, you know, and but I do think that there is something to some of it, and that it does hold truth. It does hold true in certain circumstances, you know. You know, it goes all the way back. If you look at fire engineering covers from the mid 60s, like when I got in the fire service, you know, the firehouse was filled with magazines, right? And because that's the only thing we had back then, you know, we didn't have a computer. There was very little at the light. So you had the trade publications, and that was it. And every picture from let's say a 1965 fire engineering, or, you know, that was the only magazine, that and Fire Command at the time, was, you know, they'd have a picture of a pumper with a John Bean high pressure booster line, putting a line in a window back then. That was like the thing to do. Well, 10 years later, that wasn't the thing to do. It was just the opposite, you know. And there's so much stuff that changes in the fire service like that. I mean, at the same time, they were telling us we had to buy lime yellow fire trucks because a guy with a couple of letters behind his name said that they're the most visible at night. So everybody started going out and buying lime yellow fire trucks. Well, 10 years later, nobody was doing that pretty much because somebody else came out with a study that said, no, it's the lighting and the striping and all that that really makes the difference, you know? And there are situations and things about equipment and tactics like that go on and on. Things are in 25, 30 years ago. Progressive fire departments around the United States were sticking a fan in the window of every fire they went to. Today, that doesn't happen that much anymore. They're putting curtains up now. All right. So if you're progressive, you're putting curtains up. So what happened? There's no truth to that. There's some truth to that, or it's, you know, somewhere in the middle. I tend to think
it's got to be trends in there's trends in every industry, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's got to be a trendy kind of thing to do. You know, some study, like you said, or some guy has an idea and then it catches on like anything else.
Yeah. And again, some of it's based in truth. Like I rattled off those numbers about the collapse statistics once here. I mean, those are sobering numbers when you see those, and those were done in testing. You got to accept that, you know. But on the other hand, I'm not. I thought the whole idea with science was to be skeptical, you know. So I am skeptical about some of this. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying, but I pick and choose the parts that I think, I think they're onto something there. And you know, at the rest of it, we'll see what happens. You know.
And you have to also have to incorporate your experience, what you've seen with your own eyes. Yeah.
The one definite is that as time progresses in the fire service, they definitely have come up with a lot better equipment and you know, between, like we said, thermal imaging and the Hearst tools and all they've all come and improved so much. But there's a lot of things that haven't changed. A lot of and this is going to be a selfish plug for you and I, Dennis. If you remember back in, I think it was 2000 around there, we both co-authored an article that was published in Fire Engineering called "First Do Without a Clue."
Right.
And we actually taught it at FDIC. I recently pulled that magazine out and I read that article, which is now 21 years old. And I'm going to say that 95% of the stuff that we wrote tactically is still quite effective today.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
You know, so
it's not just us. You look at many of the authors. You take let's say John Norman, you've had on as
right. Yeah, I didn't mean. I just meant yes.
Yeah, but you take guys like that and you look at, let's say, earlier editions of their books. It holds up. It all holds up. I mean, when you consider that, especially engine company operations, that manual firefighting probably hasn't changed significantly since the late 1800s. You know, we have motorized apparatus. You know, you can name 100 things that we have that are technically better and have improved what we do.
Get
you
the
know,
fuck
but
in there and put the
but
wet
you
stuff
gotta
under it.
get in there and put the fire out.
That's it.
You know, at the beginning of your show, put the
Put the
fire out.
fire out.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
shit.
I mean, it's evolved into like tactics for specific type of
Yeah,
buildings,
without a doubt.
private dwellings, frames, brownstones, high rise, lofts. But the tactics for each of those, the same things that they were doing 50 years ago, are still the effective tactics now.
Right.
All right, kids. One more.
Go, Petey.
We got
Do it.
time for one more. Everybody ready? Here we go. Number 8, the rabbit tool versus the irons. Dun dun dun.
Okay. All right. You want me to start this one?
Sure.
Go ahead, old
All
man
right.
River.
I think the rabbit tool is an excellent tool on metal buck doors. You could be, again, back in the days, with our career, we used the irons a lot, but once that rabbit tool came along, to me, it was definitely a lot easier. It was faster and easier. You saved your strength, less chance of injury, and, you were getting in.
A lot of less damage to the door too.
But yes, but pretty much, I mean, if there's a good job, we let's face it, we didn't care too
No,
much.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about for food on the stoves and all those other shit things.
Right, for that kind of stuff, yes. But so to me, the rabbit tool is the tool over the irons in that scenario, and maybe a couple of other specific type of trying to get a purchase on a hinge side, in a commercial or something. But even with that rabbit tool, you always have to have your irons with you. To me, the irons is the most versatile set of tools in the fire service. Yeah. Okay, because you're using it for forcible entry, and if it's not a metal butt door, a good guy, even if you buy a lot of departments with not a lot of manning, just the Halligan. If you know certain techniques, for popping a wood butt door, I mean you're in there in seconds. And if there's a pair, it's a no-brainer. And then once you get in there, you still have the tools to do other things with. While you're making your search, taking the glass, popping an interior door, whatever. So you can't beat the irons as the, to me, is the best tools to have on the interior of a fire building. That being said, again, it depends the areas, right? If especially like in Manhattan or something, you still, you're going to be bringing that rabbit tool, and it's so much smaller now. The first one, remember, it was like
A bag.
75 pounds.
It was like the porta power.
That's what it was.
You had it in a big bag. It was the porta power with the hose, and then the jaws went in there. And then, of course, if the junior guy had to carry it that night, you would always take a 10-pound weight from the gym and put it in the bag. This way, he was carrying an extra 10 pounds, so he figured it out. But once they came, with the smaller version where it was just everything in one, I mean, that was a home run, and it wasn't oppressive to carry that, even if you had the irons. So that's my thought is rabbit tool versus the irons.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that the rabbit tool is one of those things like we were talking about. That would be a good topic for a show. Lou and Kevin would be, technology in the fire service. How things have migrated from the trades, from the military to the fire service, and have become tools that we use every day.
Right.
The rabbit tool is a good example of that. You see that all the time, but you guys go to these shows. I mean, I was always very impressed at these shows. You go to, let's say, like the Harrisburg show, and you see all these guys that are really, a lot of them are from the trades, from agricultural backgrounds, right? And you look at those rescue trucks that they put on display every year, and you go, wow, this is really well thought out. You know what I'm saying? But I agree with what Hank said. The thing I would add is you have to have the skills with the irons. And that takes time and experience to build up. And the one thing that the rabbit tool kind of does, it's not, you need to use it. It's much faster, like Hank said, is though we don't get because we're not getting the reps to begin with. And now we're using the rabbit tool a lot, which makes up, it's very forgiving of technique. There is very little technique, whereas with the irons, there's more technique, and, the more you do it, the better you get at it. But I think all around, the irons are more versatile, but the rabbit tool does what it does very, very well. I mean, what was the the fire that you featured, the hotel fire in Brooklyn that went to like 18 alarms the night at a
St. George.
St. George Hotel. I was at that fire. I think it was there at a third alarm. And I'll give you just a quick little story with the rabbit tool. So we get there. We go to, I think our building was on Pineapple Street, and every apartment, I think I told the story, had a all hands fire in it. So I get up to whatever it was, the 12th floor with my guys, and the chief goes, I need every door on this side of the building forced, because everybody that left their windows open, the fire extended from the building on the next block, right? So who do I run into there? John Norman, who was at the time captain of Rescue 1, who's there. So John goes, you got your rabbit tool? We got to get all these doors for us. So I turn around. I go, yeah. I go, go ahead. And I turn to the guy who's got the irons. And he just looks at me like, I mean,
You giving him what?
You're giving a who?
this is John Vigiano's company. All right. And I go, you didn't bring the rabbit tool. We're going into a fireproof multiple dwelling. You didn't bring the rabbit tool. No. Okay. Well, start forcing the doors. What are we going to do? So I bring my outside team in with me. We went up as a company. So I got 2 teams of guys going down. We got through it. I mean, these guys are all experienced, good guys. But I said, just let me ask you this after the fire. I go, when would you bring the rabbit tool? Like, when would you say, I gotta bring the rabbit tool? I can't.
Not this
even,
time. Evidently,
this
not
one.
this time. This wouldn't qualify.
This is the one where I said, when I got back to quarters, and the guys all said, you're not going to tell Vidge. I said, I'm not going to have to tell Vidge. You're going to tell Vidge, And sure enough, I came in and next to the tours, and it was like, hey, Murph, anything you want to tell me about the 18 alarms? And I go, no. He goes, so he knew all about it. They ratted each other out. It was unbelievable. But it just goes to show you, in that particular application, even a good company, a very good company, is that rabbit tool is just going to go pop, 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 pop.
Cap, I was going to say almost just that. Is it because of the efficiency? Do we like the tool because it's efficient, and then thereby it makes you faster, and then it gets you to the fire quicker, or to the to the grab or whatever?
And it's more efficient because it's putting 8,000 pounds of spreading force on a lock. So think about that. It's boom, and it just fails. And the one thing you got to be careful of when you're operating with the rabbit tool is to make sure you maintain control of the door, because if the fire is right behind the door, and we used to always put a foot in the door, right up against the door, and have a rope or a piece of webbing around it,
right?
Because it has dog chain. It has a tendency to open the door rapidly, pop, boom, it fails, and it's got a lot of kinetic energy in there, and the door shoots open. If the fire is right there, now it's in your face, and you may not be able to reach in and pull that door shut. So that's another little tip. But
I would say the only time I would really ever, if I think back about how much, we never used a rabbit tool. Guys, especially young guys, think about, we were into projects all the time, 120. Yeah. If you had young guys, you wanted them to force the door, even for food on the stove, whatever it was, gas leak. We used it. If I think about how many doors were forced like that, it's uncountable. They're
not going to learn anything using the rabbit tool.
But if I know that if we had a job and we get up there and there's 5 apartments on that floor, and the chief saying, Louis, do me a favor, get into every one of those apartments, I would just tell the guy, use the rabbit, just pop all the doors so we can get in and out of here, right? So this is not the time that we're going to practice right now.
Right.
Huh?
I was waiting for Pete to give the bad, the sounds. You were frozen there, there you go. Usually I get it. Why can't you get it?
Did you hear what I said or no?
Yeah, you were good. Yeah. It was Hank who was probably frozen.
So you guys moving.
There you go.
That would really be the only time.
You better give Pete a shot at Geritol.
Listen, all I could say is this, right?
He got up and got a snack. I don't know what he's doing over there.
I went to the bathroom.
Yelled at his kids. I don't know what he did.
Everyone's got a GPS on their phone. Every single one of us. But what happens when you're in the mountains and then you have no signal? You know what I mean? You revert back to. I've actually had to revert back to MapQuest and printing stuff out at hotels when I'm on a job, like somewhere in an area that I don't know around the country. Yeah. So you always, you should always have that in your back pocket, I would imagine, in any situation, right? Like, everyone's going to argue about this piece of gear or that piece of gear, but it's your knowledge that gets you through the end of the day.
That guy Lloyd Xmas has a good one. The Ram is good floor above with zero visibility.
Yes.
You know, to use that's a good time to
Yeah.
have. You know, you pop a door quick. You know, you can't see. It's a pain in the ass forcing the door. Obviously, the conventional way. So that is.
You got to worry about
definitely-
somebody smashing your fingers.
When I nod my head, you hit it.
Zero visibility. If you're the guy holding the Halligan, do you want the guy swinging the axe with zero visibility? I mean,
That's
yeah,
what I just said. I like to keep my fingers. Thank you.
You know, I mean, yes, has it been done many times? Yes, but
That's a great.
again, you got a tool that can make it easier and safer.
That's definitely a great.
I would just bring one other point up. Just be aware that you are getting in that much quicker, so you will be that much ahead, but maybe before the line gets up there. So just be aware of that. That's all I got, Pete. What do you got?
All right.
Well, I think we should.
You got the Spurba thing?
Exactly. So let me go ahead and I'll show you the first picture here. Hold on a sec, boys.
Oh, we got pictures too.
Yeah, we got a bunch of pics. So this was today in Westbury. Let me read this to you. The Westbury Fire Department was alerted to a house fire with possible occupants trapped inside this morning, just before 7 a.m. on Sheridan Street in the Newcastle area of the district. Upon arrival, a working fire was discovered in a vacant home. With the cold weather, the person started a fire inside to keep warm. Westbury firefighters arrived on the scene and aggressively began a primary search and alerted an additional truck company, in addition to the FAST, to the scene to remove the boarded up entrances and windows. Eventually, the male advised police that he was the one who had exited the premise before the first responders arrived on the scene. With the economy the way it is and fuel prices skyrocketing, more fires like this morning will be occurring throughout the country with winter upon us. So there's just some photos here. And I guess apparently the neighbors were trying to get this guy out for a while. He was living here for a while, and this is your boy right here.
All right. So what happened now? I'm not really following the story.
He was a vagrant, a homeless person, took up residence in that vacant home.
Yep.
Probably started a fire to get warm.
Yep.
And it got either he fell asleep or whatever, got out of control. A lot of times they'll start it in the tub if it's still in there, with wood, and then the next thing you know, it's going up the wall or whatever.
Yikes!
And then he exited the building. But so this goes back to the talking point. When people say, "Well, why do you go into those vacant buildings and stuff?" Right. We always say, "Well, you don't know it's vacant until you searched it.
Right.
You know that there's nobody in there." I mean, is this guy's life worth less or more than somebody else's? So it's kind of like,
I don't know. Let's take a look. I don't know. I'm kidding. You're right, Hank.
I mean, he's down on his, it's there, but for the grace of God, So you piss off your in-laws, you may be out in the street.
Oh, Hank, that one was right here. I couldn't get it out. You read my mind.
So, I mean, that's why firefighters do what they do, because, we respect life. And this unfortunate, granted, if it's marked up with X's and there's holes in the floor and it's a heavy smoke condition, yeah, it might be very gingerly. You're going to take all the boards and stuff off and get in there as best you can. But this is a perfect example of just like Dennis's story about the basement before, when they're pushing a fire, when they say you can't push fire and they kill the guy. Well, here's a vacant building that wasn't so vacant. There was a person living in it.
TAC has a good point. It says occupied till we say it ain't. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. We've been searching vacant buildings as long as there's been fire departments. So it's we definitely operate in a different gear when it's a building like this. It's a go slow approach. But we do search them. We do get in there. We extinguish the fire, and we do conduct. And in some cases, you have to conduct a more exhaustive search because of the conditions inside buildings like this. It just takes longer. It's more difficult. It's more dangerous.
And a lot of times, bigger buildings. I can remember again This is going back, but when I was 280 and 132, like on Underhill Avenue, there was a lot of 6-story vacant apartments, but there was a lot of squatters living in there, different floors, and you'd have multiple fires in the building.
Yeah,
maybe somebody was on the second floor, wintertime. They started a fire to get warm, so you had a couple of rooms going. You know,
Yeah.
well, that's okay. You knocked it down. You put it out. You know, you marked the building.
You'd have a building which I don't think like your generation saw a lot of it. You probably saw the tail end of it, but you'd have a huge building. Like I remember when they took us up to the Bronx when I was in probie school. I said, people live in these buildings, and then when you get out to the field, you actually saw it. That like Hank just said, a building would be half empty, but then there'd be 3 or 4 people living in apartments in the same piece of crap building, and they actually were living in there.
No electric, no heat, but they had a roof.
Right, and probably a lot better than that guy was living in that house. It's just they had their little part of it, tightened up. It was, and they were able to live there. But it's amazing what people will do to survive. It really is.
And once in a while there would be somebody unconscious in there. Maybe they fell asleep or whatever, or they had tied one on or something, and there's fire rolling over their head, and they don't even, so you went in, you made your searches, and you put the fire out.
Yeah,
Maybe you dragged them out and they had a giant meat cleaver in their chest, Hank.
Yeah, but that was an occupied building. There was
all right.
Butcher knife, not a meat cleaver.
That's still one of the best stories ever, bro.
Good God. Yeah.
Oh.
All right, boys.
All right. Great show, man.
All right, well,
guys, thank you for coming on.
Nice pictures, Joe.
Good stuff, Joe.
Joe is our reporter on the streets, Sperber. So keep it up.
Joe's a good man. He's a great photographer.
And Joe just really saved my butt and supplied us with a lot of photos for the Squadrometry, which is being worked on. I'm just chopping through all this footage that we just did, so it should be out soon, guys. Yeah. Just heads up.
Excellent.
So Joe called me right before the show, told me about this. So Joe, there you go. We got you on, and we appreciate you thinking of us.
I'm going to take him to lunch.
Send in a picture.
Yeah, Joe.
All right. So our other topics, I guess we're gonna bankroll like we always do for another episode.
There's only one or two left. We'll push them over to the next.
There's a lot. Yeah, we should do more of these. These are good ones, you guys.
I think underwater car fires should be a whole lot.
I love underwater car fires.
With the electric cars, it actually might be a topic.
Cheat sheet away.
We'll bring Jimmy Mack in, Hank. Have him. That was always his expertise.
Right. Exactly.
Hey, was it real quick? Was it last week or somebody on the show or somebody was telling me maybe that that electric car fires could respark like for days and weeks after, like to like get them out? Is that the case?
Yeah. The EVs right now are a whole brand new set of fires that the city of New York is getting a real quick lesson in right now, where they're trying to rewrite codes to catch up to what they're having. And even though they've rewritten codes, nobody's abiding by them. Just like the roof rope rescue the other day, that was started by a guy that was repairing. He had like 5 of those electric scooters. And the problem with the lithium ion battery, this is a real quick, is that you can douse them with water, but what happens is they continue to off gas, and then they just reignite. And depending on where they are, they can even explode. I saw a picture one where in a bike store they had one that was burning. They put it out with an extinguisher. They threw it into the toilet bowl in the water, and the thing off gassed and exploded, and it blew the ceramic toilet bowl apart.
Wow, I've done that. I've done that myself a few times, Hank.
Yeah, but without the battery.
Usually after Taco Bell.
After Taco.
But what I'm saying that's the force these things. That's a little battery, so you can imagine.
Yeah.
That one of the if you remember Hazmat, remember Paulie Rogers?
Yes.
He's a retired lieutenant. He's got a whole company now that's all they deal with is
good for him.
What do you call it?
Consulting. Not too long.
For all these companies, because of battery storage and energy storage, because that's the next.
Without a doubt.
Capt, Hazmat's running their balls off now. Isn't that kicking
Finally.
I was talking to John Cassidy when on 9/11, and he was saying, their runs are through the roof now, but I was asking him how they were handling these scooter fires, and he says they overpack them, and there's some sort of a foam or something they fill up the overpack drum with, but this is changing everything. Like you said before, Pete, the average car fire, our engines in New York City carry 500 gallons of water. Nationally, it's probably a little more than that, but not much. At the most, and then rural areas that don't have hydrant support, they may carry a couple of thousand gallons. The average one of these EV, I'm talking like a car, I'm not talking about a scooter, an EV car, takes, instead of taking 500 gallons of water to extinguish, it's taking 40 to 50,000 gallons of water. So you got to develop a water supply, and then like you guys were saying, they've had instances where they take these things to the junkyard and they reignite again. I just watched the thing where the junkyards now are segregating them so they don't go with everything else. They go off on their own, like surrounded by dirt for 20 feet around them. And even some of them are putting them in a pit and filling the pit with water.
Yeah, when Salvo came on, he talked about all of that stuff.
In Germany, they have a vehicle that has it's like a roll-on, roll-off dumpster vehicle with an auto crane on it, like Hazmat used to have on his second piece. Right. And they roll off the dumpster, they pull the rig around, they open the auto crane up, they use chains because the vehicle was on fire. They lift it up, they put it in a dumpster, they fill the dumpster with water, and then they put it back on the truck and they drive it away.
Wow.
Yeah, that's for real. Look it up.
Yeah, no, my wife just sent me something that one of the car companies just designed, just patented a suppression system built in to the battery. So if the thing catches on fire, it sprays some kind of chemicals on it and douses the fire. So whoever came up with that is going to make a shit ton of money.
These big container ships that are carrying cars, they've had a problem where
one sunk in the middle of the
right, because it takes off, and then there's other EVs, and once they get going. They're uncontrollable.
Yeah.
And,
say goodnight, Gracie.
Eventually, the metal melts, and then good
night, Gracie.
Awful.
The ship's going down.
Awful.
And, people forgetting on a commercial ship, it's not like a Navy ship where there's a crew of hundreds.
No,
there's like 25, 30 guys. That's it. So you don't have the manpower to sustain a prolonged firefight.
And if the container's one that's in the middle, you can't even get into it.
You can't get near it, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, boys. That's a whole nother episode. I'm looking forward to doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that dovetails into underwater car fires. So
exactly.
That's what brought that up.
Segue into it. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, look at Hank, the segue.
The segue.
All right, fellas, we do see what you're saying in the chat, and I think it's a good idea. I'll talk about it with Lou. They want to do a random thoughts with guys from different parts of the country to get different aspects other than FDNY. Which I think is a pretty cool. We'll take maybe a guy from Florida, guy from here, maybe two guys. Maybe we know a couple of guys.
Two, three guys over there.
Chicago, Texas.
Yeah, we'll throw them up there. We'll give their random thoughts, so we get to see what other guys are thinking from around the country.
Yeah,
I heard in kind of talking what we were just talking about before. Guys in Florida, like in the Fort Myers area, right? They're having a big problem with the electric vehicles after they got flooded.
Right.
Oh shit!
They have more car fires than they probably had in the last 10 years.
Yeah. So
there's
things that are happening all over, and you're a good clearinghouse to get information out to everybody.
Right.
Nice. Good. We'll do it.
All right, Petey, button it up, buddy.
Real quick tonight, boys. We're on all the audio players. Check us out there. iTunes, everywhere. Spotify, all that. YouTube.com/Getting Salty Experience. If you're here, hit that like, subscribe, and share, please. Instagram @SaltyDog Inc. Very salty, old school. Awesome fire photos curated by Mr. Refreno there. GettingSaltyApparel.com is where we ply our wares. We have our hats, we have our hoodies, we have all the good stuff. Check us out there. It's Christmas time. It's right around the corner. If you want to get your stuff on time, get your orders in now. Super chat, guys. Thank you guys, as always, so much. Special mention, theburnbox.com, you guys, if you guys like mystery boxes and stuff like that, this one's a firefighter box that they send to your house every month for a subscription fee. Head on over to theburnbox.com. Facebook, guys, Getting Salty Fans page. That's where we get a lot of information out to you guys, especially about the shows. Also, where everyone's sharing a ton of info, funny stuff, cool stuff. Check it out. It's worth hopping on there if you're on Facebook. Getting Salty ads @gmail.com. If you want to advertise with the show, shoot me an email. I will shoot you my spiel. Getting Salty Experience @gmail.com, guys. As where you have general questions for the show and for our news show, that Cocklofts and Cocktails, hit us up at CoopsPodcast @gmail.com with all your fire photos, helmet cam footage, rig photos, table photos, your hot old lady contest stuff, all that, guys, shoot it on over. Also, guys, one quick word. If you have a recommendation for the show, that's great. It's all good. It's not really, we really do like that. But do us a favor. If you email us, please email us the person. Don't just say, hey, I like Tom Smith from, Connecticut, such and such. We need Tom Smith's info, maybe a picture or two. Tell us about him, plus his contact info, so we can get to him. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, let's get Paul Hashagen on the show. Well, do you know him? I mean, we know him, but you know what I mean? Like, give us the guy's number and his info,
Excellent. Yes. And somebody also in the chat recommended maybe for the next random thoughts, we get the Tivadar from Budapest.
What? My friend,
What are you talking about? This is not how I speak, you idiot.
does not speak this way. Tarbash, the Egyptian magician.
I don't know why we think this guy talks like that. He's
He
from
doesn't.
Budapest. He probably doesn't even talk like that, but he loves the show, bro. He's a fireman in Budapest, so maybe we'll get him on.
Love Tivadar.
All right, guys. Listen, Captain Murphy, my captain, and my senior man. Thank
Captain
you
Murph.
very much as
And
always.
senior
Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Yeah, you
Thanksgiving.
too. Have a great
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you for
We
having
are-
us, and I wish everybody out there a
We are
happy.
very
Thanksgiving.
thankful for you guys taking these two young snot noses under your wing way back in 1998
Yeah,
and
right.
trying to making something out of us. Appreciate it.
So
Yeah.
Dennis, we tried. I don't know.
Yeah,
if we-
they're still trying.
Thanks for coming, guys. It was great.
And thank you
Oh,
to the Leatherhead Nation. We love you guys. We're very thankful to have you guys. Enjoy your time home with your family. Eat some turkey, and hopefully Pete doesn't get shot on Thanksgiving.
We'll see
No,
you.
no, not me.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the other family. Oh my God.
All right, guys.
All right.
We are off on Thursday because it's Thanksgiving, but Monday we got Captain Dale Jenkins from Houston, right, Rufy?
Yes,
He's got
correct.
like 50 or 60 years, something like that.
Some
on
silly
there's
number.
There's no age out there in Houston, so somebody was saying that he was actually working during the Kennedy assassination, so that should be cool. Excellent, different.
Crazy.
Wow.
It's gonna be a good
Excellent.
one, man.
Yeah. All right,
All right.
guys. We will see you on Monday. Until then, stay low and go.
All right, everybody. Thanks, guys.
Good night, all.
We'll see you at the big one.
All right.
No one is coming. It's up to us. Let's go, boys.